see. Check the channels, make sure we're five by. Sometimes it takes a few, and it might show up. Yep. And so we're live on mine. You have to go to the home channel or the home tab, and there we are.
I just posted the link on Ancient Amnesia. It's just showing the link. It's not showing a. Oh, wait. I think I got that wrong. Hold on. Okay, let me see. It's the YouTube. Yeah. Let's see if it's up on YouTube. Okay, here we go. And I am. Okay,
Okay, that's going. That's good. What
everything
else we
looks
got
good.
here?
Let's see if
Anything else?
it posted the tab, but it's not showing the actual live stream. But that's okay. I mean, I can upload it again later. So
Okay, well, we're live on
okay.
Rumble as well. I'll put that link in the chat. The chat in the hat.
All right. Well, it's good seeing you again. It's been a while.
You
We've had
think?
many conversations for hours.
And they've been popping up in the timeline. This day, 4 years ago, you and I were talking about consciousness,
Yeah. How fitting.
right?
I mean, I think that's what it's an important conversation to talk about because we anything that's going on the planet, all the political changes and everything that happens in society, all these cultural shifts, technology shifts, every single thing at base is consciousness evolution. And that's really where you and I have talked a lot about is tracking that cyclical process. And that goes back into the ancient times and all the esoteric knowledge and all this stuff is the blooming and contraction of consciousness and it's coming through a pattern, a cycle that ties into our galaxies and then beyond, right? So as much as we think, oh, all this stuff is new, it's all novel, we have new revolutions, new futures ahead of us. You and I have talked at length, but I think this has happened before. And this idea of Atlantis, Lemuria, and all of these ancient civilizations, they went through this same process to some degree, and it's very fascinating. So when I look at this stuff, it's in these lenses that I like to take it because it also takes away that emotional, you know, direct, feverish kind of emotional attachment that people have to current events and what's going on. I think we need to back up and look, zoom out, look at the Earth from the moon, and see how it's been playing out as these cycles go through. And I think that's where we really start to get information of like, oh my God, we're in a bigger play here. And it's very exciting because we're in a transitional period, which is very rare for people to live in, right? The time I was talking to my fiance about it recently. It was like, can you imagine living when Rome's empire fell, right? Like that 60, 70 years where thousands of years before you lived in this growing empire and then you just happen to be the 50, 60, 70 years that watched the fall. And I think that's what we're seeing. We're seeing We're seeing a destruction process and a creation process all happening at the same time, and it's going to shock the world. I mean, it's shocking the world right now, but there's a lot of things. I think we're on the cusp of the actual heavy, shocking information that we're about to see unfold in the next decade or so.
Completely agree. As usual, you have, even though you've been on your journey and I've been on mine since the last time we got together and flapped our yaps about the wonders of the woo. Um, the fact is that the things that we've been talking about, and I'm feeling this in major cyclical spades, the things we've been talking about and have been, typically relegated to the categories of the tinfoil and the woo and, and the whatever. And the conspiracy theories, of course, that whole category of crap. I've rebranded it myself. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I'm a conspiracy analyst,
That's a
and
good way to put it.
I look looking at these things that are so controversial that they not only get poo-pooed, pilloried, and otherwise, but they get shunned and banned and canceled.
Hmm.
And fascinatingly enough, the more I looked into the things that I found interesting that were in those categories, the more interesting the information became. It was like, wait a minute, this has got more validity than the way you're packaging it. Just and I don't know shit about it. But oh, by the way, I decided to know some shit about it. And the more I got into it, the more I realized that the shit you sold me was not what the shit really is. Getting getting to what I refer to as the nut of the nugget, which is my uh, modern way of saying first principles thinking. You got to get down to what is actually the essence of that which you are pondering and understand it at its core, sans all of the packaging and all the crap that people wrap around it and serve it up to you in. And that's a very difficult thing to do because it requires you to ignore that you've got to acknowledge, but put aside that which has been packaged around whatever the idea is. And this is now manifesting in that blooming that you're talking about, in my opinion, across all disciplines of knowledge.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what discipline, what silo, academics, entertainment, science, quantum physics. I got to tell you, I am thoroughly enjoying the complete disarray and self-imposed destruction of
Yeah.
quantum physics right now.
Yeah.
String theory, there is so much going on amongst themselves. They're all fighting amongst themselves because nobody can figure out, it's all, they don't realize that they're looking for the wrong thing in the wrong place for the wrong reason.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
And I
that
think
I
people,
think is what you're talking about.
yeah, and people need to approach this just like any other type of science. Is you find out what's not true. So you may believe something, but if you don't listen to all the other ideas about what that particular thing is, you're not going to really know for sure whether what you believe is really what you believe. I mean, because you may look at other information that seems adverse to your belief, and hey, the broken clock is right twice a day. You're going to find some truth within. You're going to discover new avenues of that same topic that you never thought of before.
Hmm.
And at the very least, you may have a more expanded view of what you believed was true. It can reinforce what you believe, or it can shatter it completely, or it can. Either way, that's how you evolve. I mean, it's the same as the scientific method, right? You
But
do a
isn't
lot
that
of
part
wrong things before you find out the right way,
right? But
and
isn't that
so
part of where the fear is, though, Josh? I mean,
that is the
that
fear
last
because,
one,
yeah,
if you explore and find something that shatters your beliefs in your
that's right.
world, you really don't want to go there unless you're ready to suck it up.
That's right.
Because what, and it really depends on what is on the other side of the reality that you have adopted, that you've bought, and that you have clung on to. If
Yeah.
the other side of the reality is something so profound as the reason we exist, what
Yeah.
the why, theologies cover all of this, philosophy even, and the sciences of now. Everybody's got their own speculation on why we're here, where we came from, where we're going, all that stuff. The ultimate questions of our existence, just because we exist and we think. We just go,
Yeah.
well, where did I come from? I don't remember anything before this. I find it
Yes.
fascinating. I've gotten into some conversations with some of these, even the physicists, when and people going on about NDEs, and I'm going, well, why wouldn't that be accurate. Why wouldn't that be true? Well, we only have anecdotal evidence. We only have something that comes from a personal experience that somebody
Yeah.
had that they've recounted. It's like, well, how do you know that's not valid?
Yeah.
Well, we
Well, I
can't
mean,
test it.
and
We
when you
can't.
look at,
There's no way to observe it, test it, measure it, right?
that's right.
Because they're looking at the wrong thing for the wrong reason, using the wrong tools. They're not going to find it with what they've got to go look.
Right. Well, we I always like to tell people, look within your daily experiences. Like, well, prove love exists. Well, I mean, have you been in love? I mean, that's the proof. Do you need that under a microscope? No, it's proven by the fact that we all experience it and we have this collective understanding of what that is. The same can be said about consciousness. I mean, we knock out 1/3 of our life. We're not even on the planet. We're in our beds and we're having crazy experiences that we have no idea how to really understand. I mean, trying to understand what's happening when you go to sleep at night is, a never-ending quest, and there's been multiple ancient schools of thought trying to figure out that process. This idea that your consciousness just literally shifts into a new frequency. What's happening in 1/3 of your life? You're in bed. You have no idea whether you're going to wake up in the morning. What's going to happen when you fall asleep? You have no
No, I'm
direction.
glad. I'm glad you brought that up, Josh, because we've talked about that before when we've gone on about your perception of what this sleep thing is, right? And where does
Yeah.
consciousness go? So I think shit, it's been 4 or 5 years since we talked about that. I have a new idea or hypothesis. Let me run this by you.
Okay.
I don't think that anything that happens consciously is different when we sleep than when we what we consider to be awake. And what I mean by that is that our consciousness is always on, whether
Yes.
we're astral traveling in sleep or what we call sleep state, or in the consciousness, or in some ethereal realm, right? I think the whole sleep thing is a biological issue. It is not a consciousness issue. For whatever reason, I was thinking about this last week. I kept thinking, why in the hell is it that our experience in this carbon-based unit materium iteration requires this daily pause? No matter how, whether you call it sleep, sometimes it's naps. For a long time, I never really slept in the traditional 5, 6, 7 hour period. I'd sleep 2 hours here, 3 hours there, and I was fine with that, and it worked out great. Going back to your point before we went live, talking about cycles and biological rhythms. So for some reason, whatever it is, it's clear that our observation indicates that this biological carbon unit requires a pause period throughout a certain time period, and it's regular. And it's a large part, basically a third of the carbon unit experience that we have
Right.
here. So I think that that's biological. I think the consciousness is always on. It's just shifting
It's a
different
frequency
stages.
shift. Yeah. It's going from country to hard rock, right? It's 95.6 to
I've done that in a
101.
dream or two.
Right. I mean, and that's the way it works. It's like a radio where your frequency shifting. But anything that happens there is no such thing as like the body without the mind or without the spirit, these type of things. So when you're resting biologically, there's also an effect happening psychologically in all of these different mental states, because and I've read information that's fascinating, that says that as you're sleeping, you're basically downloading the information from your waking state, your waking frequencies, into this different frequency, which the ancients would say is the awareness and the self that exists in your dream state is closer to your post-mortem self. And it's almost like there's this review happening,
Mm.
and there's this ability to connect with other higher self characteristics that you don't have access to in the waking state. So it does seem like there's a full recharge happening, not just biologically, but there's potentially a recharge happening with the mental state as well as you go back. And this is why, when we say, oh, we see these things in our dreams, what we remember from what we do is not exactly what happened, right? Because we're translating that from a different frequency. It's like when you're shifting radio stations, you're picking up a little bit of that country as it's moving to rock, and you can't really quite make out the song, but you can tell. And that to me is what you're kind of trying to translate from the waking state from the sleeping state. So it's never going to be clear. It's always going to be fuzzy. It's always going to be tough. And the art of dreaming is to get better at clarity, get higher definition in that remembrance, and to take control while you're there a little more, so you have this more lucid state, and you can control it. But and again, it's just fascinating to me that what we call reality, what we try to understand, your original point of like, why are we here? What's the questions? It's like, well, we don't even know what happens when we go to bed at night. We're still trying to figure out some of these basic fundamental things that have been a part of everyone's life. Everyone does these things. Everyone has these experiences. So I think all of us can benefit from just taking a step back and saying like, hey, it's okay to not know. You're really going to know less than 0% of what reality really is when you die, no matter if you live to 100 years old, compared to what's out there and what's possible. Whatever the truth is, the ultimate truth is, we're only going to be taking a very tiny little bite of it in this lifetime. So, kick back, open up, accept different realities, be comfortable with uncertainty, seek information that breaks your boundaries. Don't overly emotionally attach to information, even if it sounds amazing. We all want to be, in this fantasy world, and some of it sounds just really fascinating, like the ice wall stuff, or Hollow Earth, or all of these cool things that are happening. It's like, it's okay. You don't have to emotionally attach to those things, but you can be a scholar of them. You can learn, you can read, you can be incredibly educated on the subject, but also still tell yourself, it could also not be 100% the way that I'm thinking that is too. And it probably isn't, but there are pieces of truth within, I think, all of this information. So, as we move into these new cycles, and as people are waking up, it's like the best thing we can tell people is, hey, relax. It's okay to not know what the hell's going on. It's okay for you to break open of your own, ideas of reality. It's okay. And you need to be ready, because what's going to come in the next 40, 50 years is stuff that we can't even imagine today. So we do have to be prepared to be blown away. And I think technologies are going to come out. I think you're going to see, frequency healing. You're going to see all kinds of things,
Well, zero
anti-gravity
point
tech.
technology is where I've been focused on. I'm working on one of my books is called The Future 3, and that's about everything that we need. Communications, energy, and water are all around us all the time. That's in the atmosphere that we breathe and the reality we inhabit and navigate through. All of that is there, and it's always been there. It's an understanding of technology and physics that we can't achieve with the billiard ball grit model of quantum physics and Einstein. All of the stuff, the science that's been built on the incorrect theories and models and ideas of reality is about to just collapse,
Hmm.
because it has to, in order for us to transcend and go through what I think we're going through right now is transformative disruption.
Hmm.
And we have to do that. You can't, all the systems that are in place to administer and manage society and culture and the global infrastructure were not designed for the next. They were designed for the then. And even then, they were designed in ways that didn't anticipate, didn't strategize, didn't think ahead of new technologies, new processes, new systems, new ways to look at things, all of that. So none of the systems that are in place today can be fixed or repaired. They can only be replaced.
That's right.
And the replacement will be, if you had right now the technology for free water, free energy, and free communications are off the bench in production and fit in the size of your hand,
Yeah.
each one of them.
Yeah. Yeah.
If
I
you
agree.
rolled that, if you dropped that on society right
Yeah.
now, it would just, everything would collapse.
Yes.
It would be
I think
utter
ultimately
chaos.
that's the key, Robert, because everyone talks about, well, how do we how do we change all these systems? It's like, well, every single thing that happens to, like, all money, all monetary things, all goods, all production, everything boils down to energy. The cost of transportation, the cost of production, the cost of everything, cost of manufacturing. When energy is free, right? And we know how easy it is. It was available thousands of years ago. thousands and thousands of years, probably millions of years ago, thousands of years. It's always been available, and it's as simple as putting up a freaking antenna and tapping into it. I mean, I think it's that simple. I think people don't realize how easy it is. The Earth itself is just a sphere of electromagnetic energy, and it's as easy.
Everything exists.
You're sticking a
Everything
straw
is.
into a river, man. You're sticking a straw into a river,
We
and I
just don't
think,
have the right straw, and we're not sticking it in the river.
yeah, and I think we have the right straw. I think the straw has been suppressed and destroyed,
Yes.
and so I think that when that happens, like you said, when that energy happens, everything immediately, it could be just a snap of the finger, and things can change so rapidly because so much of it's built on energy. Um, there's not going to be a need for monetary systems whenever you can, grow food for free, when you can travel for free, when you, I mean, everything's going to be that I think is going to be the revolution, is the energy, is the energy change, and that everything then follows that. And so we can talk about, oh, do we need the Fed Reserve? Oh, are we going to break down these systems?
All those will
Um,
go away.
yeah, all those are going to go away. And even if you go to gold back or silver back or all the things we're talking about, which I think we'll see a transition into, I think we're going to systematically deconstruct, and I think they already have in place, things to replace it with.
Hmm.
But in that same amount of time, you're going to start seeing. And here's very interesting. Did you? I know that you caught this, but did you hear when Trump talked about he's going to, on the 250-year anniversary of America, he's setting up a World's Fair,
Hmm.
and you've got Elon Musk now who's on board, and I'm starting to like get these Tartarian vibes of, are you
Yeah.
telling me that this dude in every single state, in there's going to be a constructed World's Fair that everyone in the state has a chance to go to? It's going to run for 1 year. And he specifically said it's going to showcase new innovative technologies. Now, if you wanted to make these energy changes like we're talking about, and you wanted to advance civilization, you have to show the people, and you have to do it in a way
Hmm.
that they can
Well, that's how
process. And
world fairs have been known for, right? All the ones in the
yeah,
past were the future. Come to the
yeah,
World Fair. Here's and that's where Tesla
and
actually
that's
beat out
interesting, right?
Edison, right? And for the
I mean, Tesla.
1893, I think it was World
This
Fair,
is crazy.
right?
It's all coming together. The towers we just talked about, sticking the straw in the water, getting the electricity in these electro streams that are just in the air. Now you have this guy who names his
Hmm.
company Tesla, and now he's a part of this new innovative technology
He's part of a
release.
bunch of a pirate ship of intelligent, innovative, and people with a shitload of initiative.
Yes,
All individually have that, and they have now coagulated into this pirate ship. I look at them as the Avengers. I
yeah,
mean, they really fit that. But before there's two things. One, I want to add on. We were talking about the sleep thing and about death and all of that.
yeah,
I've got a question that at some point we can come back and revisit. But you know how everybody talks about after death, right? Why doesn't anybody ever talk about before birth?
yeah,
Where is what happens? What was it that you all of a sudden came into being? What was going on then? The more I looked into that, the more I realized that my sense of having an iterative experience as a unique frequency stamp and signature of the energy of consciousness, I went, okay, I can see how I can travel and flip through different manifestations because that energy is what creates everything. And most specifically, the materium that we inhabit in our carbon-based meat suits, right?
mhm.
So that's a separate thing. What I'd like to have a conversation sometime. Well, what about before birth? Let's talk about that. What may have happened there? Because if anything, it should give us a clue to after death,
Yeah. I
right?
mean, I think they're the same place. One's at the bottom of the slide, and the other's on the bottom of the stairs, right? um you and I think that's what happens, when you come off the slide, right? It's I've always, the analogy is like, when you go to those water parks, and you go to the one that's like the craziest, the scariest, right? The
Oh
one
yeah,
that's like this, and it's 10 miles up.
yeah.
And when you're going up there, you're freaked out. You're like, oh my god, your adrenaline's going. And when you get on the slide, it's like this most incredible experience. it's just very euphoric. You have this the most amazing. I would say that being on the planet for the soul would be like going down one of those slides, and it happens really fast. It's exhilarating. It's quick. It's short. And the moment that you hit the water, you realize, oh my God, I survived, and the water would be death. And you pop out, of the slide and you go, my God, what's the first thing you want to do? You want to go back and get back on that ladder and do it all over again. And so I feel like that's what we're going through. We're going through these uh, I think being here is a very exciting experience, whether some of us are enjoying it or not. I think that when we do pass, we seek to come back because we fully realize what's going on, and it puts things in perspective. But it is a tough place. I think this is a place where we gather a lot of advanced knowledge for the spiritual self. Um, I think that only people that are very strong can survive here, and I think the strongest come in to advance further. And there's lots of other esoteric information that backs that up and supports that. But yeah, I think it's an amazing experience. I think it's very fast, and I think that before we're alive and after we die, we go into the same place. But if you've ever read the Seth books, like the Seth Jane Roberts, the Seth Speak material, which is very interesting, and anybody who's listening, definitely get Seth Speaks. One of the most incredible books. Even if you don't believe it as true, it's either an incredible uh, fiction or it's in incredible fact. But in that, he says that the soul is the highest concentration of energy, indestructible energy, in the universe, and it's the only thing that can survive all things, whether it be anything. It cannot be destroyed. So ultimately, we're safe from total destruction. And the idea to come in and feel like, oh my God, we have this death that's going to happen, and we have this limited time, this looming death, right? I think a lot of us, a lot of our anxiety is rooted in the fact that we're not going to be here forever, and that time is very important, and we tend to waste it, and we can't get it back, and we have a lot of regrets for things we've done. And as we get older, we wish we could turn back time, and I think a lot of mental anxiety comes from the looming death that we have. But you
Well,
know, I,
aren't those also a bunch of constructs that have been placed around the human experience by a whole bunch of different people for maybe benevolent and maybe not so benevolent
yeah,
reasons? And those are nothing more than their speculations on the best way that they can interpret, package, and sell to the folks that they wanted to herd and control,
yeah,
right? Hey, I just noticed in the chat here, wanted to give some shout outs to Raycar Claudette. Good evening, my dear. Woo Riders in the house. Elderberry, as usual. I don't know how you guys find me. I try to be stealth. I don't tell anybody I'm doing anything. You guys find me anyway. You guys are clever. So thanks for coming and enjoying it. Um, so let's try to tie it back to and make an interesting, what I find a very interesting set of data sets to consider as it relates to ancient amnesia and modern awareness. One of the things that you champion and we've had lots of discussions on is the fact that there is information and knowledge that has been deep in the probably multiple cycles of human civilizations here on the earth, each one having a very, apparently from what we can tell, and it kind of makes sense if you game it out, very unique skill sets and energy, or in psychology and in telepathy, um, different capabilities and techniques to build and do things that we still can't figure out. Right? We're still looking at it going, how the fuck did they do that? With all of our smarts and modernness, right?
right.
So one of those data sets that is the oldest data set known to all of us is astronomy, which actually is the reason there is astrology,
Mhm.
right? The astrology is the mapping and the measuring and, setting up and defining the metrics of the way the astronomy moves about.
That's right. It's the
And
original heavens, right?
the original heavens, right? And heavens wasn't even a word that they used. They just went, all those gods up there, all
That's
those
right.
shining lights, everything was alive. Planets, stars, galaxies, solar systems, moons, and everything on the planet was alive. Everything was organic because it was there when we got here and found it and started trying to figure out what the hell it is. So ancient civilizations, ancient traditions, mythos, and the cosmologies all talk about that the reality they inhabited and experienced and interacted with was alive. It had consciousness. Everything had some level, but probably more appropriately, some degree of consciousness. And if consciousness is the reason everything exists, and the reason everything exists is because consciousness expresses itself always in motion, always seeming to create more of itself, and always seeming to have some preference for novelty, something new. How does it do that? It expresses itself through energy. What does energy express itself as? Infinite fields of frequencies. Everything that you can imagine that, and you can't, is in the energy fields that make up everything. The frequencies, the vibrations, everything. This is what the ancients knew. This is what Tesla he rediscovered and brought. And then he had his own cosmic connection, getting bolts from the blue of divine inspiration and invention and innovation. But we all had this, our humanity had the sense that the reality we inhabited was alive and we had to interact with it. One of the things that drew me to Taoism was the fact that there's no hierarchy, there is just is. You are experiencing the is that is as you experience it, and understanding its nature, its habits, its characteristics, uh, what its preferences are. You don't have to understand why or how, but you can observe that's what it does.
Hmm.
So this ancient knowledge, this astronomy, which then became astrology, much like herbology became pharmacology, and so on. In that astrology, let's just stick with the astronomy. We don't have to even get into the astrology part. In the astronomy, 245 years ago, there was this solar position of this planet we call Pluto, and it was beginning its next 240-year transit. The time was 1776.
Hmm.
During that time, there were some interesting things afoot. There was a band of rebels and renegades known as the folks of Washington, Jefferson, Adams, Madison, et al. A bunch of 20-year-old renegades that were basically saying, we have had enough and we're going to go off and craft our own shit. And they did. And they did it knowing that if they failed, it was going to be at least prison, most likely death. So they said, fuck you, fuck off. We're going to go over here and do our own thing. We're going to sit and have a good think about this. We're going to have Ben Franklin and George Washington and Thomas Jefferson and John Adams and James Madison and all these incredible individual intellects sit down and argue and come up with a document that they feel has the best hope for an experiment that has never been done before in human civilization. Fast forward 240 years.
Yeah. Well, I also think that if you look at the 1776 and you look at 100 years after that date, we began to have, and slightly before that, maybe 70, 75 years, we began to have immediately these revolutions like the industrial revolutions, and up until the early 1900s, I think that we were on pace to already have these free energy technologies and things. So, like you said,
Well,
that
Tartar, right? Tartaria
yeah. So
had it.
this
And then what
this
about the mud
Pluto,
floods?
yeah, right. And that's why before we got on, I'll say that this is more than just what's happening uh, as a culture and civilization. This is planetary. This is astrological. This is cyclical. I think the sun, if the planets were people, the sun would be the gods, and the suns, they are transmitting. I think they are the ultimate transmitters of these new frequencies that are pulsing from somewhere else, maybe the center of the galaxies, that in turn are being fed from some other source. But there happens to be this kind of filament highway of frequency rivers that are hitting these suns, and they're acting like little nodes of frequency generators that are now blasting all of that on all the planets that are rotating around them, following them, and upgrading all the life and biology and other systems on the planets that they hold. And I think that's what's happening. I think that the planets themselves could be more like dials within that frequency band that are then changing subsets, right? Like the
Do you think
gain
we're getting
and
impacted by the galactic current sheet from
yeah,
the
I think that's what's
galactic
really
center?
happening. I think in a
Yeah.
in a yogic, when we talk about like the Vedic cycles, I think we're looking at they describe in the Yuga cycles like a camera aperture, that when you go into the darker cycles, into the Kali cycles, that the light of God is like a camera aperture where it's very thin and then
Mm-hmm.
it starts to open again. And so more of the synergy is like flooded through this aperture lens.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that right now we're seeing the expansion happening. Like we went to full closure and now it's starting to open. And I think it's going to be a very fast process. And in the yogic cycles, the Kalis are the shortest periods, so that's good. I mean, there seems to be a benevolence to at least that itself, right? Like within the cycles, the darkest ones are the shortest ones.
It
So I
seems
do,
there's some interesting data that suggests that the Kali Yuga we just ended in right around 1700. It was the end of the Kali Yuga, and we're now in the Dwar Arpa Yuga.
right.
And uh, the essentially, it's kind of like you're saying with the aperture, even though that cycle apparently numerically ended around 1700, right about 1700, apparently, there's still a shadow, right?
Yeah,
It isn't a okay, you got here and it's done and all that energy's
right.
now stopped. No, it flows and it dissipates, and it's kind of like
It's
the
like
way I've
it's
been
like a
describing.
sunrise or a sunset, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the last 400 years we've been under the dissipation of the Kali Yuga and the rise of the Dwar Arpa Yuga. I think is pronounced that way. But the point is that the two energy cycles are vastly different. My sense has been the energy cycle over the last 400 years, essentially at the end of the Kali Yuga and the start of the new one, was one that was ridden by mostly nefarious cats that were a bunch of hangovers from centuries or millennia before, bloodlines and all that kind of stuff. But they were riding an energy cycle in the cosmos that was they figured out how to take advantage of, and they used it to their own agenda, which was not a good one for the majority of humanity. But that's now switched. So the energy that was there is dissipating, and the rise of Tuesday the 19th, this Pluto, again, going back to this Pluto cycle, the return of Pluto, it's going to leave Capricorn and enter the sign of Aquarius, where it's going to be for 19 years.
Hmm.
There's a lot of just interesting correlations. Forget about the astrology and the meaning. If you want to dive into the really cool woo, that's when you do want to look at the astrology part of it. But if you just look at the astronomy and you just say, okay, well, this is what's going on. This planet's going to be in this sign at this time for this long. Do we have any corollaries? Do we have any data to look back on to see are there any commonalities when these energetic entities
Yeah,
are in these
exactly.
positions? And
Yeah.
that's what astrology is all about.
Yeah.
It's about looking at, okay, when these things are here in this alignment,
That's
shit
right.
like this happens.
That's right.
Okay. That's all it really is.
Right.
Now, going deep into the woo, you can say, well, like our friend Jeff Harmon, he gets deep into the, okay, but Pluto's got this aspect and these energies and these characteristics, and
Yeah.
Jupiter's got this. And I'm going, yes, I get that. They all have individual personalities, especially if you go back to the original way in which we humans were looking at the reality we inhabited. Everything's alive. Does that mean
Yeah.
Pluto's got a personality? Yes. Jupiter, yes. Oh, by the way, the sun is conscious too.
Yeah. That's what I really find that fascinating. I mean, I looked in the research of I mean, we talked earlier about astrology is basically the source of all religious activity. It's most religions are solar theology, um, astrotheology, and and there's a reason for that. Is because there was an ancient understanding that we change with the sun. You know, the sun has these cycles of pulses, and it has a kind of a contractive and an expansive states, and all that energy is cycles within cycles, like you talk about, where yeah, you have planetary positions, but you also have within those same cycles galactic cycles, you've got solar cycles, you've got planetary alignments, you have all of these different things that are turning the dials on this frequency that we're going through. So when you line up with a galactic position, a solar position, planetary position, solar cycle, right, then you get a different output. And all of that's going to change the biology on the planet and things that express. And even in the evolutionary sphere, when we look back on like, there's big evolution, there's small evolution, but it looks like that it's explosive and it's close to immediate. It's not this long drawn out period of time from, a fish to an ape. It's like the frequency conditions that exist on the planet can shift very fast, within a human lifetime, and in an and it allows an expression of biology to immediately be allowed to exist. I mean, you can go take dirt that has never had any grass in it, or dirt that has had grass has been dead for years, and you dump some water on it and it immediately springs out grass again. I think that it just takes the conditions that are required for that biology to express. And I think that's how biology works. It's an instant thing. Once the frequency changes, the biology instantly changes, and then other things are able to then, come back or be created again. I don't know if it's a new creation, but it could be um, something different that was built before, or an adaptation. But you look in the
Well,
fossil record.
let me poke at you a bit on that
Yeah.
for a minute. The whole idea of frequencies is and the vibrations is we agree that that's what everything is manifested from. And those frequencies and vibrations have their own characteristics, their own wave signatures, their own cycles, their own every one of them are individual while they're working um, within all of the rest of the frequencies that they inhabit, because they're all the frequencies are from the same source,
Right.
right? So let me ask you this. We've got mega ruins. I mean, megaliths that are just beyond anything we can do. Hell, Elon couldn't even tackle some of this shit right now. He may eventually later, but just ginormous things. We have this the flora and the fauna gigantism all over the
Right.
place. Trees that were a mile with bases that were a quarter or a half a mile across, all over Madagascar. So we had giantism, if you will, right
Right.
on the planet at one point. It's clear. The evidence is it's not disputed. You can't sit there and argue with it because it's in your face. Do you think that when things were that large, that this gigantism thing happened, and yeah, and include even the monoliths that were clearly not natural, that are of this ginormous stature? Do you think that during the time that those things existed and were created, that the frequencies were different?
That's why I think that they were able to exist. I mean,
Like, for
I think
example,
that,
like maybe the gravity was less, or
yeah, different
whatever,
oxygen,
different
nitrogen
frequency, all
levels.
kinds of variables.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. I think that it's like Raykar said, like DNA is like an antenna, and I think everything boils down to um, biology is really like just a receiver for the changes that are made outside of it, like the cosmic cycles, the frequencies, the galactic positions. Those things are feeding new frequencies, feeding different energies that allow biology to then express itself, and that in turn changes things like how nitrogen, because the bigger the plants, the different, obviously, oxygen levels, things that are going to change within our atmosphere, and that's going to allow gigantism to exist when you have these different atmospheric percentages. It allows, when we pump in CO2 into a greenhouse, we can create these giant, plants. I mean, we can mess with it ourselves by just having controlled atmospheric growing and things. And so imagine that happening on a planetary sphere. So
Well,
yeah, it
and
makes,
that's the thing, is it clearly, to me, there was something different afoot when these ginormous things were about. And at minimum, I think it has to be something to do with the frequencies. I also think that we do live on an expanding Earth, and I do think that there's no way, in my opinion, that we have an iron molten core. It's a plasma core, and it is constant plasma energy that is constantly growing, because why? That's the nature of the cosmos. Everything is expanding.
yeah,
Everything, there is no contraction identified anywhere, which is giving all of the folks of, the science dogma of the second law of thermodynamics heartburn, because entropy, well, okay, where is entropy? Show me some. There isn't any. There's transmutation, but there is no dissipation, and that goes to the whole the law of energy can't be created or destroyed.
right. I mean, it
Well,
never
you're
is
half
destroyed.
right.
Right.
Energy is being created, it is never destroyed. So
Yeah.
you're and again, looking at the wrong thing for the wrong reason. So I find it real interesting that when you look at some of these metrics that have been around, the ancient knowledge and wisdom that, and the traditions and the cultures and the mythos and cosmologies that have all these really interesting, the Dogon, what the hell, how did the hell did they know about Sirius A and B?
Yeah.
Excuse me. Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, you've got the ancient
they
Vedas
told
are
us,
tracking. Yeah.
yeah, they
y-
tell us that, well, we know because they came down here and told us.
Right.
Oh,
And,
we
and
can't believe
that's what I
that. Well, see,
find. That's what I find funny about the modern world. It's like in one hand they say respect the natives and their culture, but also don't believe anything they have to say, because they'll sit there and tell you, oh yeah, well, there was an ancient civilization came over and taught us, these gods taught us how to build, and mathematics and architecture and all these things. Like, that's what they said. But
mm-hmm.
oh, that has to be mythology. It's like, well, where's the respect? I mean, and when you have all of these cultures saying that there's some origin in the stars, um, whether they came from there, whether they were hybridized, whether other beings came in and taught them, I think all those things were probably true. I think you have hybridization. I think you have people that were like Cro-Magnon, um, hybridized from different humanoid kind of ETs that had come down. Remember, we're talking 3 billion years, 4 billion years of lifetime on the planet. I mean, this can happen multiple times. You can have planetary problems, people moving from one planet to the other. The idea that there's been Mars colonies that come over and inhabited Earth. And when you look at the fossil record, when you look at in our DNA, when you look at, you do see this, right? We have Neanderthal DNA, we have Cro-Magnon DNA, we have all this different stuff, and so it tells a story that there was some kind of mixing going on. Um, and you look at Asian DNA, it's very interesting. It looks like it just got here, right? There's not a lot of mixing in the Asian DNA stuff. Like, you could create a virus to wipe out all of, China and Asia, because they're so similar. Like, they have kind of unbroken lines. You don't see a lot of this mixing in them. And I asked a client of mine who happened to be from China, and he said, "Oh, it's because we haven't been here that long." He claims they come from a different star system, um, and they do seem to have an interesting story. There's some unknowns going on with that. So when you look at the fossil record and when you look at ancient Vedic knowledge, they say that everything in the fossil record you'd see wasn't an evolutionary process. It was all happening at the same time, So you have these Australopithecines, Heidelbergensis, all these different hominoid types, and they were coexisting. They weren't evolving from one to the other. So, the past looks a lot more colorful. And you can have a period where there was hominids living with dinosaur types, living with modern humans, living with advanced ET humanoids. And I think a lot of this was going on at the same time. And when you look at the fossil record, that's what it shows. It shows that it is all mixed. And they try to blast that narrative. Oh, it's only been 5,000-6,000 years, and don't worry what happened before that. We were just chucking spears at mammoths for a couple 100,000 years, and before that, and we were just apes. And it's just very convenient for them to tell this story that is like insanely, you know, more colorful and amazing than we'll ever really come to know. And partly because things get destroyed, right? Every comet wipes out lots of data.
Well,
So
and that's part of the interesting aspect of data mining all of the narrative, right, and seeing what is it there that you can actually put your mind around and try to cobble together. What's fascinating is that the dumbing down of the stories that the academics and the experts and and theologians and all these idiots do is so boring and so milquetoast, because if you look at what they're saying is bullshit, is way beyond anything. I mean, it's basically Star Wars in script.
yeah,
I mean, the Vedic and the Rig
exactly.
Vedas and all the Mahabharata, Ramayamas. I mean, the amazing stories that are going on in those are just mind boggling.
Right.
And they are written not a story or myth or allegory for some kind of teaching of some moral or ethical or lineage thing. It's because they said Lord Shiva had some shit to do with Lord Vishnu, and they got it on and started throwing lightning bolts. All right, I want to know more about that. And tell me again about how down in Mohenjo-Daro,
Hmm.
right? You're down there looking at melted radioactive
Yeah. Glass.
debris.
Yeah.
Explain
Well,
that, Lucy. And then what about the vitrification all over South America and all the
right.
various cultures? I mean, aside from the monoliths and everything else,
But there's a lot
um,
of science in there, Robert, because when you look at Sumerian, like the science is there. Look at the pyramids. It's a testimony to science. I mean, you look at Saqqara. I mean, what you're looking at is science. It's like, how the hell did this happen? How did
but
they
is
have
it
the
science? Is it science that is designed to understand it, or science designed to obfuscate it?
well, it's science that we have yet to understand.
Well,
But
but not according to the academics.
that's what I mean, though.
They got it down. They know what it
Well,
is.
they
They've
they
told
tell
us,
you
right?
something, but they can't also like show me, right? Show me you can
Yeah.
do that. Like so, and when you look at Sumerians, you look at, oh well, these guys are showing the planets in the solar system at their relative sizes. You look at the Yuga stuff, and it's like, or the Vedic stuff, and it's like they're telling you the speed of the moon, and like we now know these things. So when they're accurate on these things, you can't deny that they had advanced science. There's no way you can just guess those things.
I
So the
wonder if it was
monuments,
of advanced science or if it was advanced knowledge.
yeah. Well, I think
Because I don't
science and
think that,
spirituality used to be a little bit more connected.
well,
um,
philosophy or science used to be called philosophy,
yeah.
right?
Right.
But back in even the ancient times, I find Casey's readings on Atlantis and all of that just fascinating, and in particular the two-eyed stone, which is apparently what the energy and power source was for the Atlantean civilization. And that and screwing with that is apparently what, according to Casey's readings, what caused the actual cataclysmic event that caused the sinking of the island, if it was that indeed. I think Atlantis was actually a culture, and probably two or three iterations of that culture
Yeah.
that had been, like you said, comet comes in, blows out the biomass. It's like, okay, kids, start over. You're
Yeah.
on the clock.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I totally agree, and that's what I think. But I think that their destruction also, like we're talking about the expansion currently in our society that we're witnessing, also happens in periods of cyclical time. I mean, when consciousness goes into the contractive stage, um, we get kind of pulled into the body more into the ego. We try to control instead of allow, and we force. And I think that's when you reach high technologies, and there's this golden age, silver age, that you have these technologies, and then you carry those same technologies into these darker, more contractive consciousness stages. It's self-destructive. I mean, it eventually all ends in tears, right? Because we can't handle that. I mean, a certain level of technology has to be matched with a certain level of spiritual and emotional development. You can't have high technology and low emotional and spiritual development. It's just it's like giving a 2 year old a loaded gun. You know, it's only a matter of time before it's all over. So that's the key. Is like that. Are we ready? And I think that we've been suppressed. I think that we've been in position for over 100 years. You said that 1700 date, um, but we've been forced um, into a false Kali Yuga. Basically, it's like they're trying to stick us here, but they can't fight the ultimate, pattern. Like there's just no way. They can try and they try, and they did a great job trying, and they succeeded for a while,
Yeah,
and
they
they got it.
rode that wave hard, and they
They
rode
did.
us all into the ground as they were riding hard, and that was the plan, and that was
Yeah.
their intent. And I will give them an A+ for getting on it and riding it and trying to fight off all of the constant repudiation and rebellion that the people they were pulling this shit on kept coming at them with, because they caused enough consternation and frustration and anger and annoyance among those that they were ruling over, and imposing all of this nefarious will about that eventually. And I this is something I called a couple of years ago, going on 3 years ago now, when they started. It was, remember when the truckers in Canada got all geared up and went and caused a bunch of hooey in downtown in Ontario? I
Yeah.
looked at that and I said, you know what's happening here? This is the beginning of the rise of the pissed off peeps. There is a collective energy that is starting to flow through the carbon units on a global level. And you don't have to be awake, you don't have to be conscious and turned on and any of that, or even seeking the guru in you or trying to find the one. The amount of bullshit has been so obvious in a just a normal reality and common sense perspective that everybody's bullshit meter has been pegged into the red and is now broke.
Yeah.
And that that realization has now begun to fume and fuel, and it got to the point where I think, my humble opinion, maybe not so humble, my opinion, the election result was that cosmic bitch slap of denial and repudiation and rejection.
Yeah.
And it wasn't a political one, although that was the main event. It was a psychological one. It
Yeah.
was a cultural one. And I think it was so profound that the reverberations are still afoot now, and all of the events since then have just done nothing more than more pebbles in the water, creating more ripples and more waves crashing into each other. And I think that it's going to continue for quite a while. And it goes back to this point about ancient amnesia and the knowledge of the ancients.
Yeah.
This astronomy, astrology thing is the oldest knowledge we know,
Yeah.
from the way that we measure and put metrics around the reality we inhabit. There is nothing older. There's nothing more accurate. There's nothing more dependable. Well, of course, it's going to get shot down and tossed into the conspiracy woo woo bin. You
Right.
can't let reality and true knowledge get out amongst the people. What are they going
Right.
to do with that? They're going to
Well.
learn. They're going to become aware. All of a sudden, they will become aware, and then they will start to have this reveal of the stuff that they thought was one thing, and then they're going to rethink the stuff that has now been revealed to them, and then they're
Yeah.
going to have a reimagining of what it is that should be doing, should be going on, and people should be doing. Because what's clear is that the fundamentals of the institutional administration of reality and the world we inhabit is all fucked up. None of it's working. It's all broke. It's all corrupt. It's all fallen apart, and it can't continue because what's being asked of it, it was not designed to do.
Yeah. Well, it has to completely collapse, and absurdity has a short expiration date. I mean, you can be absurd, and it's just not going to last. Um, so yeah, I think that I think people are going to be shocked at, depending on the degree of where you're at and what you know and what you've been reading and how long you've been on this, the noticing train, right? Like how
Hmm.
long it's been since you started noticing things. You're going to be in for a surprise. I even think that people like us are seasoned and been watching this for a while and known this for decades. It's still going to be a wild ride for us. So it's going to be tough for a lot of people to get that much downloading of a new reality into their skulls. I mean, it's happening right now as we speak, and I think it's going to be important for people to have conversations like this, um, and just talk about what's really happening, and also the just the potentials of the new planet that we're all about to see. And I'm still cautiously optimistic. I think that we're on the offensive now. I think that there's some traction. I don't think that there is a defense. um, I think that the battle formation's now an offense, but I don't underestimate these ancient um, controls, these ancient powerful systems. They still have deep roots, um, and it's going to take a while to dig those roots out. You can chop the plant; it may look like it's gone, but um,
Well,
you
I
know,
can see your point, but I would proffer this. I think and I didn't call it an election. I call it a selection.
yeah,
To me, it was a selection of one path over another. It wasn't any of the political stuff. Was just there for the theater and the formality of it. But I think basically what happened is it was on the level of, as I was saying, it was a repudiation across the board. Have you noticed how quiet, aside from the talking heads and all the parrots and the
yeah,
propaganda mockingbird media, it's been real quiet. It's been kind of, and not only in here in the U.S., but there's been a whole. It's like within a week, a whole bunch of shit that was going one direction totally changed direction and
yeah,
is now going in a much better direction.
yeah,
And at the end of the day, and this goes again back to the astrology, and interestingly enough, ties, in my opinion, to the way that we think and the way that we actually function. It's all pattern recognition.
yeah,
We learn by pattern recognition. We learn by the the corollaries and the mappings to other experiences and information that we know, and how the new information might have any puzzle piece mapping or whatever to some other information. And if it doesn't, then all of a sudden now you're in the wonderful world of your field of imagination and trying to go, where am I going to put this thing? What do I map this to now that it's completely outside of anything I've ever known before? And that, I think, is part of what we're seeing. We've been seeing this for a long time, but the reality of the U-turn has caused a major shift. The quietness, I think, is because a lot of people are having that existential moment of realizing that everything they thought, or at least the majority of it, if not all of it, was bullshit.
yeah,
And they're having that internalization of self-reflection. It's interesting that the majority of these people that are on that, fall into that ideological camp, they love mirrors. They're all about the mirrors. And it seems like they're getting a forced reintroduction to, hey, why don't you go look in a mirror and have a think about yourself?
that's
And I
right.
think that's a wonderful thing. I feel very positive about it. I think that it's going to continue in exponential ways that is really going to surprise a lot of people. We're not only going to see the reveal of information and things, it's going to send a bunch of people's noggins spinning off into space. But there's also going to be a whole bunch of the really cool shit, the technologies like we talked about.
Yeah.
One of the things I'll toss this at you.
Mm.
So, as you know, I've buried my face in the technology space for nigh on 40 years, and I've got my own uh, future tech model. The technology for the 21st century renaissance is what I'm calling it, and it includes not only AI and what it's more accurately called expert systems, but more importantly, it's all based on blockchain. So the blockchain is this idea of data constructs that are immutable. They can't be changed. They can only be added to. And they are a record upon a record upon a record that's tied to a record that's encrypted. Okay. Well, the liberation of information, of identity, the securing of sovereignty and provenance of oneself is going to happen through the blockchain. Everything will be tokenized. The tokenization is simply the data identification that is secure and safe and is immutable and verifiable and accountable and has authenticity. That's all it is. Well, when you lay out a system like that, your opportunity to transform not only the financial and the transaction systems that we use to interact with, but all of the administrative systems and agencies, hell, even countries. The whole concept of a border will start to morph because using the blockchain, providing what they call trustless interaction, right, and authenticity, you're going to have self organizing collectives of people with similar interests. And those
Yeah.
entities are going to grow and create their own ecosystem using all the same technology that can then interface with other self organizing collectives. And that to me will be the organic, transformative disruption of the way in which our societies around the world are constructed. But here's
Yeah.
the interesting part. That's just my speculation, and it's in my forthcoming book, which I'll let you know when it's ready. Blockchain seems to me that, and there's an idea running around that I seem to resonate with, that the blockchain is actually a gift to humanity, slyly and stealthily subverting the prime directive, providing the essentially what is considered the fundamental construct of the way information in the universe works. And that was given to us to help us get through this transformative disruption into this new age. So the blockchain is the cosmic code. And one of the things I find extremely fascinating is plant medicine has been pilloried for the last 150 years of control. Prior to that, it was the medicine, and it still is the medicine. But as a cranky cannabis connoisseur and snob for 54 years, I feel that cannabis too was gifted to us from the cosmos. The most versatile, healing, incredible plant that we know of any kind. So I profit I proffer this. I think that the new age is going to be ushered in by cannabis and code.
That's funny. I mean, I find like psilocybin, psilocin, those compounds. There's you've
Mescaline,
heard,
DMT,
yeah.
and
There's
DMA.
McKenna.
Yeah.
McKenna has an idea that language, right? Let's say there was some pretty advanced, maybe Neanderthal types, and they came into contact with some of these substances, and they do seem like they're specifically designed to interact with human consciousness and open up neural networks and create the ability for the advancement of language. And so there's definitely a tie-in there to
Mm-hmm.
the purpose of some of these entheogens and human consciousness evolution that in turn could turn into technological advancements, societal advancements. So there's definitely a relation. I think that we're the Earth is it's a singular unit of coexisting forces, and we're just a piece of that. We're a little mitochondria within the cell that's the Earth, and we're interacting with all these other things, and we're getting charged through electromagnetic stimulation. We're getting charged from input data from other things that are happening, and plants, I think, serve that purpose. They're healers, they're teachers. I mean, they give us the oxygen, right, that we're breathing. Um, it's a beautiful thing when you look at the symbiotic nature of plants and humans. I think that they're definitely on the teaching side of biology. Um, and so what we're seeing going forward, and it could be an integration of these compounds. Who knows? I mean, I think that when you get free energy going, you're going to see some wild things in terms of medicine and plants, things that like how we farm food, how we produce food. I mean, I think that even in today's system, that if it was honest, if it wasn't corrupted, we could already be. It's a pretty high Renaissance period, even with just using coal and using oil. I mean, if everything wasn't corrupted, if they weren't just down there in South America and these gardens of the planet and just using them to control, and it was all wide open, and these societies were given free energy tech, and they were able to just advance. I mean, there's so many things like within the rainforest. There's so many medicines and plants and compounds and things have yet to even be discovered, and God knows what those things even do to human consciousness. And
See, I think we'd be 4 years into the soaring 20s if these asshats didn't try to pull off this fucking hoax called a virus.
yeah,
Okay, I mean
yeah,
that whole thing. That's one of the things I think I ran off the list last night with Heidi. You know, all of the shit. And just let's just start with JFK's murder and move forward and pick any major event, including Watergate, including Martin Luther King, Bobby, Marilyn, Lennon, and then all of the shit in the '80s. The original terrorist bombing in the World Trade Center, and then 9/11, and then the banking crisis, and then O'Bumble, and then all the bullshit with the Clintons, and then the not only the phony virus hoax, but the 2020 election bullshit was a complete fucking hoax. The January 6th thing was a complete fucking hoax. And then everything that has happened over this last, what, 60 plus years has been an orchestrated
hmm
psyop,
yeah,
and it's now being exposed as
right,
such. So all of this shit, and especially the ones that had the most incredible impact on humanity. You notice how they all happen here, right? Kennedy
yeah,
gets shot. That was like, whoa, wake up call. And then 9/11. Oh shit, world changes. Wake up call. Oh shit, virus. Wake up call. It's like you guys. That's your playbook. It's been obvious. You did a
yeah.
shitty job covering it up. The internet got away from you. So these independent citizen scientists and journalists and researchers got their mo on,
Digital
put some fung in
soldiers.
their shui, and they went and
Yep,
studied this shit and outflanked you.
yep,
And you can't have that. So what do you got to do? Well, you got to cancel them. You got to
yeah.
censor them.
Because
Then that got
once
exposed,
somebody wakes up, they can't go back to sheep, right?
right?
So the
Exactly.
problem is they can't put the cat back in the bottle. Like once it's in there, once it's out, like you're done, and they know that every single day a new light turns on,
Hmm.
and then there's a critical mass. When we reach that critical mass, then there's just the darkness dies.
I
Like
think the
you,
mask just kind of showed up uh, on the election.
I think so. I think we are at that click over of critical mass now, and I don't think there's anything that can really stop it. And so it's exciting, but I don't think it's over. And I think that the corner tiger is going to swipe a little bit and draw some blood. Um,
I don't
But
know how much of the juice they've got left,
that's
Josh.
the question
I'm
I
looking
have.
at
You
it going,
know, I don't
they've thrown,
know.
they have got to be close to emptying the bag.
I mean,
And I also think
it seems that way, Robert, but it's a
it's a
big three-headed
big,
dragon, man.
it's a big bag. I know. But here's the other thing. I think the reason I think that way, my spidey sense and intuition tells me that the folks that were at the top, they jumped ship a year and a half, 2 years ago. They bolted.
Yeah,
They knew, they saw through their own foolishness, and in spite of their complete lack of having any foresight of anything, they saw that they were going to have to bail. So they left, the majority of them. The second and third level lieutenants, managers, commanders, and shit, there's no bench in there. There's no charisma, there's no leadership or anything. There's just a
yeah,
bunch of minions. And those fuckers don't know what to do. They
obviously.
can't create, right?
Yeah,
So they're just turning the page in the book trying to find something to fill the fucking space.
yeah.
And they're down to the last shit that is not going to work because everything they've tried to pull, this whole election thing was a case study in psychology, in business, on how not to do shit.
Yeah,
It was just unbelievably incompetent, inept,
yeah.
and obviously so. And in fact, it almost to me, at many points, seemed like they were doing it on purpose.
Well,
I'm thinking to
that's a
myself,
theory, right?
you
That's a
want to be
theory.
that stupid and do it on
Yeah,
purpose? Okay. I'm not sure
right.
where you're going with that, but good luck.
Right. And that's why, like I don't emotionally attach to any of these one ideas, but there are multiple ones. And you sit back and you watch and you think, oh well, that's some evidence that this one's true. And this idea that there is this decision between, look, and I've always said, if China, Russia, and American military decide they want something done, the world sits down and shuts the fuck up.
Hmm.
So you have all these mercenary groups, you have all of these CIA groups and mercenary groups that are hired around the world, and all of these corrupt subsystems of control. But if China's military, the U.S. military, and Russian military says, "Hey, you know what? We're going to work together, and we're knocking these guys out," I mean, they can get it done. I
That's
mean,
right.
look what Trump's talking about right now. He's going to take the U.S. Navy and the full might of the U.S. military. He's going to claim the cartel as a terrorist organization in Mexico, and
Hmm.
he's going to wipe them out. I mean,
Hmm.
it could be done in a year's time if
Hmm.
you put the whole full force of the military on these groups. I mean, can you imagine being a cartel general right now, thinking, "Holy shit, like
I
the U.S.
I com-
Navy's coming after us, man. Like, I mean,
I
there's aircraft
completely
carriers are going to
agree.
be pulling up on our shores, and it's going to clean out Mexico. It's going to help Mexico,
I
and
completely agree, but I think that there's actually something else that's a part of this 3-4D chess kind of thing. Have you noticed that just the threat, just the idea of these things happening have changed the behavior of a shitload of nefarious characters?
yeah,
There's been an instant and he's not in yet, meaning Trump. And people are already going, oh shit, I think I'm going to start tacking to the other side here. I'm going to start watching my ass.
yeah,
So I think that's also put a significant damper on any of the nefarious disruptive events that these people have tried to pack and, position in place to cause disruption. I think a lot of that, yes, it's in place. Yes, it's part of the plan. But I think there's been a significant change in the psychology. I think these guys are actually sitting back going, we might want to rethink this.
yeah.
There may
I,
be a
I I
different
think that they've
path to our
escaped.
prosperity and our continued existence.
Yeah, like you said, I think on the political side, the Hollywood side, the theater part of it, they've lost that control. They've lost public opinion. They've lost. But what they're trying to do now, because Bitcoin and blockchain and these things you're talking about, that's the new system. And so I think that the guys at the top with any power left, the Soros guys, the people that are in those categories of power, they're moved into the financial, and they're going to try as fast as they can to create their own Bitcoin systems and their own. Now they're behind, and they have to catch up.
Well,
Um,
that's
and and
that's
and I,
what's going on with BRICS. I mean, they
yeah,
delayed
I
their
think
their
that's what you're going to
announcement to go
see.
gold backed, and I think
Yeah,
that's on purpose. And I think here's another. And Wu, to your point about Putin posturing over there, it's part of the theater, my friend. Yeah, and I will I will explain that or
Well,
justify
yeah,
it by
because
this.
if you look on that point, Robert Putin, I mean, you look at Helsinki in 2018 when Trump went over there. Trump in 17 to 18, he went to every single world leader, and
That's
that's when
right.
I think remember Obama was following him,
Oh yeah.
and he made peace, and he had private meetings with every single major player. I mean, he crossed the North Korean line, right? They got the North Korean to talk to the South Korean. He got the Abrahamic Accords done. He went all the way to the Rome and the Pope, and he went to England and everywhere. He went every single
Yeah.
place. And when he was in Helsinki with Putin, Putin handed him the ball. And what does
Oh
that
yeah.
mean? The ball's in your court. And so he
Yeah.
he he ducked out, and Putin went into Ukraine where they were having these bioweapon labs, and this
Yeah,
is
but he didn't do it until Biden was in office.
right because of
And
optics.
and here's my point.
Right.
I think I think that Putin, Trump, Xi,
Yes.
Modi,
And
um,
Rocket Man.
and I'll even toss Rocky in there. And there's a couple of folks down in the Indonesia. I think they've all been working together behind the scenes for
I
at
do
least the
too.
last 5 or 6 years.
I think since before
And,
2016. Yeah.
and it includes Netanyahu and the Saudis. And
Yeah.
I think all of these guys
Yeah.
have been doing all this back channel shit,
Yeah.
knowing that, their minions, they've got to maintain a theater and a posture. That's why we will not have and have not had any kind of World War III. That's why the Ukraine thing has been such a fucking debacle.
Yeah.
It's nothing more than a laundry. It's using Ukraine as a proxy to fuck with Russia. And the whole idea of why we're doing that is completely absurd.
Right.
We should be partnering with them.
Yeah.
And because I tell you what, my experience, the Russian scientists in both in physics and in health and in metaphysics, these guys, Kozyrev, a number of these Russian scientists are on. They're just like Teslas
Yeah.
and the Whiteheads
Yeah.
and Walter Russells. The
Yeah.
the amount of knowledge and incredible knowledge and research that's coming out of Russia is we should be embracing these people. They are awesome people. They're more
Yeah.
like Australians and good old Midwestern Americans
Yeah.
than anything else.
Yep. I've
And
always
then
believed
then
that.
you talk about Iran and the fucking mullahs hanging over the people. The
Well,
people don't want those fucking towel heads. They want
right.
them out of there. They want to go back to what they were like under the Shah. Then they were just like, if you saw a picture of 70s Tehran, it looked like downtown America somewhere.
Yeah. Well, it looked like yeah, exactly. California.
Right.
But I mean, and that's I agree with you. I think Russia and Russia's been benefiting for the fact that they haven't been under Bolshevik control for some years now, and so yeah, they're able to look at their society. It's gotten better and better, and Putin's done, in my opinion, a great job at restoring Russia to greatness as much as he can, and in also having the greatest defensive military on the planet. I mean, they are very smart. They're very tactical, and I respect them really, really highly. I do not think they're the enemy, and I don't think Putin's the enemy. I don't think
Mm-hmm.
that anybody has a perfect record, and I don't think anybody is a. There's an ancient saying that says that it's not the nature of the wise to rule. I think we expect to have these philosopher god kings in power. It's not going to happen. You're going to have a mixed bag. People
Mm-hmm.
are going to have rough backgrounds, rough histories. There's going to be things that you don't agree with. There's going to be uh, uh, things that they say that you don't agree with, but that's not the point. I mean,
Well,
that's you're
don't you
never going to
find
get
it
that.
odd that these secularists have taken on this Puritan perspective?
Yeah,
I mean, it's
right.
like it's another one of those oddball things that you go, how in the hell are you holding two opposing? And I get the whole idea of cognitive dissonance. I have experienced it my entire life. But when you look at something that's so obvious, it's kind of like we were talking last night about some of the cultural shit and the crap that's happened that has had the exact opposite result of what the intention of it was.
Yeah,
And one of them we talked about was the Me Too movement, right? Which started all the cancel culture crap. And I remember when this whole thing popped up and it was, starting to make its rounds. And I'm looking at it. It says, and it was when the whole hashtag thing started. So the hashtag was the handle was hashtag Me Too, and I looked at it and I said, "What's a fucking pound sign?" It was a pound sign before it was a hashtag. Do you people realize that you're pushing the narrative of pound Me Too? The fuck is wrong with you people? Did anybody think? Did
Right.
anybody think this through?
Yeah.
Same thing with the cancel culture. You notice how everybody that was targeted, censored, and canceled, the Carlsons, Alex Jones is about to win his shit back. It's fucking awesome to watch that shit collapse. Um, Russell Brand, Joe Rogan, the list is long. Every one of those that got canceled from the propaganda mockingbird media positions they were in are now back, bigger and better than ever.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you look at it and you think, well, how did your cancel shit work out for you? How did your Me Too movement work out for you? What was that BLM bullshit and Antifa nonsense that just kind of popped up mysteriously out of nowhere and just the same disappeared into nowhere?
Yeah.
So again, this goes back to the point I was making earlier. And you can use JFK as the marker, but if you go back to Cape Girardeau and and start throwing in the UFOs, the cosmic cousins, and all of that has been a whole psyop as well, which goes back to the point about maintaining secrecy over all this technology that we've had for decades,
Right.
and these asshats have kept it from the kids. Now, to some extent, I can understand why, but there could have been that controlled rollout of this technology, and we would have had a completely different world
Oh yeah.
now. And we wouldn't have to be going
We would
through
have
cleaning
already.
up a bunch of shit that we need to in order to get there now. We could have started off much closer.
That's right. I think that by the 1950s and 60s, we would have had a society that we may not see until 2050. Something like that. I mean, we're 100 years behind, and we've been suppressed for 100 years. And in the
Easy.
past
Yeah.
30, when I say 100 years, I mean look at the advancements since 1990 to today, right? 30 years, or um, that's how quick it's going to go. You're going to go from we never had computers, everybody's doing a certain thing, to oh my god, now we're talking about quantum computing inside half of a person's lifetime or less, a third of a person's life. So that's coming forward now. But I think that the difference is that technologies don't need to be created. They've already been created. They're already available. They're waiting. They're sitting in the military. They've already been tested. They've already been advanced. They've already been modulated. Um, they're
Deployed.
they're deployed. They're ready to go. This isn't like, oh, we can now start figuring this out. It's like we've already figured this out.
Hmm.
And I think you're going to see that. That's why I think it's interesting that you're going to see these world fairs happen in 2 years at the 250 mark, which again is a cyclical cosmic, astrological return. And I
What do
think
you
that
want to
that's what
bet?
you're going to
So,
see.
to your point about the importance of having this World Fair 2 years later, right after
Yeah,
and on our anniversary, our 250th anniversary,
exactly.
and 2 years before the Olympics come to Los Angeles.
Right.
So within this next term of this pirate ship of renegades and rebels that have been specifically, apparently, they decided to show up and be here at this time, each one of them with a unique skill set to do exactly what needs to be done. I find that really compelling on a cosmic level. It's to me, it's like, well, you can't get, there aren't any, you couldn't assemble a better band of badasses to do what needs to be done.
Yeah.
The structural, the reconstructing, the reimagining to reconstruct and re-architect health and our systems, the finances, academic, all of the media platform. Media just, that's another thing that happened with this. The official transition from the old media to the new media is cemented and done.
Yeah. No, it's going to die. I mean, it's
Well, and it's dying
legacy
on its
media.
own because the new media, Rogan, Carlson, all these guys, PVD, there everybody has gotten more eyeballs and more interest and more subscriptions now that were canceled, that were considered on the right, that were considered, the weirdo wackos and whatever. Everybody's starting to realize that the woo is
Yeah.
where it's at.
The woo is true.
True be the woo.
Yeah, the woo is true.com, right? It is true. I think that, and I think that's ultimately what's happening right now. As the hypnosis is over, People are sleepy. They're shaking their heads. It's groggy. It's still
Mm-hmm.
it's still blurry, and they're trying to focus and figure out what's going on. You know, it's like they broke some kind of magician spell, some mass hypnosis, and the spell's dying. And as people wake up, then they kind of freak out, like, where am I? How did I get here? What's going on? What happened? And I think that's what you're going to see. I mean, people that are on the other side of the fence there, I mean, you saw that, like, on the election after the results, and there was like a spike in suicides that went like 4x. I mean, some people just are not going to be able to handle it. I think some people are going to just opt out. I mean, in the Vedic stuff, they talk about how the frequencies, you know, it leaves, it's the whole rapture thing, right? I mean, what's the rapture really going to be like? I mean, we're experiencing the end of an old world. We're shifting into a new world, and what's that look like? Do people just randomly get cancers and die? There's been talks about how the COVID vaccine was kind of like, you know, it was in a way kind of the selective rapture, and people that were asleep that believed everything that the TV told them went and got their shot, and some of them, unfortunately, you know, didn't survive that.
Well, and
And
that's the thing too, Joshua. I came to the realization on when my empathy started to cause me a lot of anxiety because I was looking at people going, "How in the hell can I help you and wake you up and get you the hell out of this
yeah, to save your
slumber that you're
life,
in?"
to save your
Right?
life. Yeah,
And I realized that it's not my job to save everyone.
yeah,
I will let the universe guide me to circumstances that I can clearly see that's what I'm supposed to do. And B, it's just not everybody's time.
that's right.
You have to let people and things go through their own cycles. You can't force a transformative and a transmutation from the sleeping to the awakening.
That's right.
That has to happen organically within the individual. You can help it and you can assist it and you can coddle it and shepherd it along the way. But at the end of the day, it's not your responsibility. It is the individual's choice and their responsibility to take the information that's given to them and do something with it.
Yeah.
Either discard it or hopefully be curious enough to investigate it and to add it to your data stack so that you can make an informed decision.
Yeah. And it's
Uh,
like I always tell people, you know, I'm a health coach, and whenever I approach people in the initial stages, it's like, look, there's a lot of things I can do to help you, but I tell them I don't tug donkeys. You know, I said it just pisses the donkey off and wears me out, and and
it's like
and
putting the
that's
lipstick on
basically
the
what you're.
pig, right?
Yeah, well, that's what you're saying. It's like, listen, there could be a donkey dying of thirst standing right next to a lake, but the no amount of effort that you try is ever going to get him to drink. He has to do it on his own, and he has to do it by, you know, with his own volition, and that's where we're at in this crossroads. Like, you can present people with information, um, but you really can't force them to accept it. And I think that the people that decide to stay, and let's say they're positive people, but they're just lost in the brainwashing from decades of being absorbed by it,
Hmm.
you know, it's going to be watching the world get better that hopefully wakes them up. Like noticing that things are cheaper, noticing the systematic breakdowns of control mechanisms falling around them, and their life getting easier. And, um, you know, I think you're going to see some people, some certain percentage of people that they will polarize to the positive, and then we'll those people will be able to join the new planet. But I do think that there is going to be also this natural process of um, frequencies that are not compatible to the new planet, and there's been multiple different types of like channeling information, like Casey and Bashar and these guys that you can listen to that talk about, like, look, if the frequencies don't match, people stay on the old earth, and the other people, they go on the new earth. And what does that look like? Well, they either pass somehow and they get reborn back into the compatible frequency of planet, right? Because the Vedas talk about how there's not just one earth, it's a layer, right? It's a multifaceted layer. There's multiple earths within earths, and they're all at different frequencies, just like a radio station. And the different dials, and, you know, there's different stations, there's different music on each station, and some of it is tuned higher. And one of the ways that you get reset back during these transitions is you die, you pass, and it could be cancer or something, anything, but there's going to be basically a culling, and that's going to shift the world into a critical mass of people that are in this frequency, and we're going to see this renaissance of technology. We're going to see a renaissance of health. I mean, monetary, you have entertainment, right, and community in media, which is your information. You have your pharmaceutical, which would be your health sphere, and then you have your financial. And these three pillars, when those are revolutionized, I think through the baseline of releasing free energy, you're just going to have immediately a different world. There's not going to be these cancers, this suffering, all of the stuff that goes on. You're
Hmm.
going to see a renaissance. And what do you do with that? I mean, my God, the world's going to look just completely different in 30, 40 years once you get to that point. Then it's pretty exciting. I don't think anybody who's not prepared for that's going to be able to stick around. And I think it's going to be a natural process of either just death by old age or people get
Get
cancers and
run
things like
over,
that.
shrapnel, collateral
Yeah,
damage,
I
and
think that's how it
unfortunately,
works.
and that's just the way of the cosmos. We are in a there's a creation and consumption cycle of the everything that we see, and consumption comes in all kinds of forms. But the consumption is the acquisition of one energy state and transforming it into something else. That's why the whole thing of you can't do there's no way that you can say I have a definitive answer on this and a definitive answer on that without having enough empirical data that you can then share with others and go, okay, this is how it works. And can you see it? Yes, I can feel it. I can touch it. I'm not sure about that. But that awakening or the realization of the reveal, remember that the last show I did with the original Nexus was the knowledge apocalypse.
Yeah,
And it was the end of the curated narrative. I had no idea that the pandemic and all this bullshit was going to happen. But at this point now, I'm looking back going, well, that was pretty prescient because that's exactly what's happening now. The knowledge is being an apocalypse, in the original sense of the word, which is to reveal, not to destroy, not
yeah.
something to. So that's just another bastardization of language, which is the operating system of the mind, which is one of the components I have in my book at Informatica about the metrics and the matrix and how the way that we see and think about things is defined or it is given context by the words that we use. And this is one of the example that I use, and I think you'll appreciate this, is with the word student, right? The student we use here in the States.
Hmm.
Our definition is somebody who goes and studies something, and it's a process. They start the study and then they end the study, and they end up with some kind of certificate or stamp piece of paper or whatever, and that's it. And you can go through and be a student of many different things. In Japanese, the word for student is ka, K-A, and their definition and understanding of student is much different. When you are a student in the Japanese context, you are a student of. You are not sitting and learning something. You're becoming an initiate so you can become an adept in the knowledge of something, but you are always a student of whatever that is. So
Yeah,
whether it's martial arts or the
you're a
healing arts or
practitioner. You're a
you're a
practitioner.
practitioner, exactly. So the difference in the use of that word is frames the idea of learning completely differently.
Yeah.
And that is to me a very clean example of the power of this idea that language is the operating system of your mind.
Well,
Depending
that's
on the
why they've tried to
language,
dumb down our language, Robert. That's why
oh,
they're,
they have done a good job of that, haven't
yeah,
they?
that's the reason why these social media sites have existed, is to shorten our attention spans, to get us addicted to absolute garbage media and dumb us down, and use slang. I mean, they're allowing slang and just collegiate type of conversations. It's like you go and you look at people talking and writing like 100 years ago, and it's beautiful, it's intelligent, it's amazing. I mean, when you look at translations, if you go get like a Penguin Classic, or you go to Loeb Library and you read these 1800s translations of philosophy or history or whatever, they're just so much better written than anything that's in the past 20 or 30 years. And it's like, I don't, we really have been assaulted by in every single way, right? Like RFK saying remove the fluoride. I mean, they're trying to dumb us down. Our drinking water is making us stupid. Our food's making us stupid. Our
The
media
food
is
is
making us
poisoning
stupid.
us. The chronic
Every
disease
single
epidemic
thing that,
is from the processed food, which is then only enhanced by the pharmaceuticals, which are designed to
yeah,
treat the symptoms and the conditions from the processed food. It's
right.
like, did somebody, what part of this clear logical cycle do you not understand? And if you understand it, how do we go fix this as soon as possible?
Yeah.
Because it's clearly been let go for far too long. It's killed millions of people.
Yes.
It's affected millions more. And it's the remedy to it is so simple. Again, going back to the technologies and what we're going to see going forward, the vertical farming capabilities, everybody will have, I think, their own little garden, and it'll be a vertical modular model. It'll be like just like having a garage, and just as important. You are even more important because it's where you will grow. Everybody will grow their own sustenance. You'll know what's been done, and you'll learn from it. You'll be healthy from it. You will be there. All the benefits from it will just be mind-boggling. And the cutting the cord of the psychology that the authorities that have been gifted or given the responsibility to execute said authority is just taking a huge hit. Credibility does not exist in any expert, or anybody with the TLA tattooed on the ass end of their name are the first ones I'm looking at with every bit of suspicion I can,
Yeah.
because there is nobody in authority that has any credibility anymore.
Right.
They've all blown it, and they
Exactly.
blew it with the single event of trying to pull off a spamdemic, and they A plus for the way that they lined it up. There's nothing more motivating than a silent, deadly killer, and you're going to freak the fuck out of everybody, pulling on the most powerful emotion of fear. And they did that right, but the execution and follow up after that was just abysmal incompetence and stupidity and idiocy. And you look at it and you go, okay, no, wait a minute. I already knew when you first rolled this thing out that there was something wrong. But then you went and fucked it even harder and
Yeah.
made it even worse. And you did it obviously without having a clue what you were doing.
Yeah. I think they were forced. Their hand was forced early. It obviously seemed sloppy, but it was the closest thing to an Orwellian state that we've ever been in
Mm-hmm.
America. Like, it was
Mm-hmm.
the idea that I wasn't allowed outside my house, that I had to be muzzled. Unbelievable. The restrictions on freedom. Um,
The whole
it
face diaper thing was just
yeah.
fucking
No, but
unbelievable.
that's a ritual, right? That's like
Right.
for them to know that you are controlled. It was more about optics and being, um, a good sheep. And everyone swallowed it up. I mean, so many people swallowed it up, and it was the most uncomfortable thing that in society they've ever gone through, just to see how many people were so brainwashed. It made me really sad. It also made me, it made me believe that something like what just happened could not happen. I really thought um, we were lost at beyond. I didn't think we were going to be able to survive that. I was like, look at these people, um, and it is amazing. But I do think that happened. It was the hand was forced and early, so that it threw off their game plan. At least that's what it seems like. Because 4 years later, I mean, look where we're at. I mean, and that just doesn't happen. There's no accidents to what's happened with the past 4 to 6 years of politics. I mean, this stuff has been planned. There's a larger group of powerful individuals, positive oriented, powerful individuals involved. You can't just take and root out ancient evil that's that, pervasive, powerful, connected,
Well,
without.
I would agree, but let me just toss this in there. Yes, the evil forces have been extremely powerful and very solidified in their positions and deep in the web that they and the roots that they've planted. But the energy that they've been using
Yeah,
to infiltrate and sustain that is not in their favor anymore.
right.
I
And
don't think that they have. We were mentioning this earlier. I think their mojo is about gone. They
yeah,
have no mojo. They and it doesn't matter how hard they try to pull together whatever they've got left. There's just not even enough of that. And more importantly, the resistance is futile
yeah.
against the tide that has changed.
Well, truth is light, right?
Mhm.
And vampires cannot exist in a world without darkness. So I think that we're seeing this light emerge, this light of truth, right? The hypnosis is
Yes.
over, and there's no way that a vampire can exist in a world like that. There's very little shadow for him to hide. And if you look at what Elon's doing, he's like, all I want is light. I want light on everything. When we make a decision, we're going to tell you what we're making. We want your opinion on it. Everything in the budget's going to be up on a board where people can see what we're spending money on. It's exposure. It's look, like, here's full disclosure of what we're doing. This is truth. This is, and when that stuff starts to get kicked into place, like it, there's nowhere for corruption to go because it can't hide. So I think these guys, they're just, you opened up the old, you're in an old shed and you lift something and all the rats go fleeing out, and you turn the lights
Flies come
on.
out and hives start scattering. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the way I look at it. I think they're just scattering. They're trying to find places to hide, to root in. I've been reading. I don't know if people have really dove into the Tolkien works, but everybody knows Lord of the Rings, but most people may not realize that Tolkien was, he wrote a mythology that is so immersive and complex. I mean, you look at what's going on today. I mean, all the themes, and he pulled from all the ancient, mythologies of the planet, and he has 50,000 years of history in his books with over 1,000 characters and full genealogies. It's insane. He wrote 3 or 4 different languages, and when you look at what he's talking about in there, it's exactly what's happening. You look at, you're shining light on darkness. You're overcoming these systems of control, and you do it by exposing the the lie, by shaking out this force that has been hidden. And look at now, you see it. It's in front of you. They're not hiding it anymore. They're not even pretending to hide it anymore. Like, it's right out in the open that they're. And so I don't think there's a place for them to hide anymore.
Does it seem like maybe kind of a death wish kind of thing where they're doing it because they know they can't go any further and they might as well just drop trow and expose?
Yeah, I mean, doesn't it seem, especially some of
Right?
the Hollywood people, or
Oh
there, have
my
you
God.
noticed that they're saying, I'm still subservient to you, I'm still your slave. Some of the things that are coming out, like, did you see Kardashian coming out with her reptilian suit,
Oh,
for
I mean,
Halloween? I mean,
the
these are like
whole
just.
bizarreness of that mentality, and that's another thing. It wasn't just the political ideology that got a cosmic bitch slap. Entertainment got a bitch slap. Music got a bitch slap. All of the film and entertainment media got a serious fucking bitch. I mean, this was a rejection across the board of everything that has been suspected to be nefarious, to be, very um, definitely not in anybody's best interest, but the people who want to do it. The Diddy shit, the Epstein shit, I think I wouldn't be surprised if I would say it's probably going to be influenced by Musk and confirmed by Vivek and maybe Vance that Trump pardons Snowden and Assange.
Yeah.
And I think that when that happens, it's going to be another part of the catalyst of the great reveal.
Yeah.
I
I mean,
think that a lot of
Musk has
these,
said that they're going to release. He said Trump gets in, Epstein list is coming out.
yep,
And I think when you have Epstein and Diddy lists, and like you said, Snowden, Assange information, it's going to be. Remember when George Bush said that if the people found out what we were doing, they would hang us on the streets. That we wouldn't be
that
able to
was
walk out
Hillary.
in the
Well, yeah, that's
daylight.
right. He said it too. That's right.
Yeah, the original George Bush, Daddy CIA, Daddy.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that's where we're headed. I think that within 2 years, you're going to see, yeah, hey guys, this is, because if you are on a certain side, that's just, you're committed to the hypnosis. There's very few things that can snap you out of it. And the pedophilia stuff is a pretty powerful pill, you know, like
It's
here's a
so
video.
antithetical to the core essence
Yeah.
of the way that we experience our humanity. It's very extreme and it's very niche. And yes, it's been going on for millennia.
Yes.
But that doesn't make it something that's acceptable to being in a civilized society and being able to conduct oneself with integrity and honesty. And speaking of transparency, I on my merch store I've got a shirt it says transparency is the truth frequency. The whole idea is that that's what's missing in every one of the systems. That's what's missing in the politics. That's what's missing in the financial system. It's what's missing in everything. Is the transparency of actually what's going on,
Right.
and it's not a as much as I was a part of the whole New Age stuff back in the late '80s through the '90s, and I will admit my participation and proliferation of the bullshit back then, and in that thought category, but I do have. There's two things that I think are really important that people are about to realize, and it's going to happen as a part of this great reveal. The first one is about awareness, self-awareness, and about sense of self, the sentience that we attribute to consciousness, self-awareness. And back in the '90s, there was this big thing, and even Eckhart Tolle still is on it today, and Deepak's parroting the same kind of thing, and it's this whole concept of you have to be in the now. You have to shut everything else out and shut everything else off, and you have to be in the now. And in my experience, in what I talk about in my book Informatica, that's not, you can't do that. And not only can't you do that, but thinking you can is a trap. Because the way that consciousness works and the way that we work, we're never in the now. We're always in the next. We're always thinking about analyzing, predicting, prognosticating, looking. We're always in the next moment. You can never be in the now because the now is always gone. The now is the instant of having any kind of prediction of and intuitive and insight into what's going to be next. So that has been a trap. The now is a trap. The next is where reality actually happens. And the other thing that it really screwed people up is this whole idea of being with the one. You've got to find the one. You got to connect with the one. The one is where you will find the oneness and find the guru in you or whatever. The reality is you are the one. You don't have to go find anything other than awaken to the awareness that you are the one because you are a frequency stamp, an energy signature of the infinite field of frequencies of energy that is the result of consciousness. Ergo, you are connected to the source.
Right.
There is no,
It's the wave.
you
It's
don't
the
have to
wave in
go,
the ocean, right? It's the wave in
yeah,
the ocean.
you
It's the
don't have to
same
go find
properties.
it.
Yeah.
You're already it.
Right.
And
It's
the,
like the
the
it's like the
awakening,
wave looking to the ocean to find itself. It's the
exactly.
same property. And you've heard that Nassim Haramein old video where he talks about when we go in microscopically, we can look and see, orders of magnitude by the dozens. It could be like 20 or 30 orders of magnitude greater going in us than looking out into the cosmos, right? So
Hmm.
all the galaxies and clusters and all the things that we see out there is a far less amount of zoom than when we go in. So when we look inside of us and cell and subcellular and atomic and subatomic and we keep going, that's a further distance than when we go out. And so it's definitely the answers
Well,
are
I'm
within
not I'm not
within us.
so sure about that, and I think that may be one of the problems or one of the reasons that people get confused about this, and a lot of it I think has to do with this whole CERN, the Large Hadron Collider bullshit. These guys, that's another perfect example of looking for the wrong thing in the wrong place for the wrong reason. They think that they're going to keep smashing these infinitesimally small particles together, and the result of that is going to be some type of reaction that will give them a peek into the consciousness and the mind of God. It's like, no, it's
Yeah,
all waves and frequencies. It has
yeah,
nothing to do with billiard balls crashing into each other.
exactly.
And all you're going to do, you're going to spend the next 10,000 years keep going deep and deep and deep. And you're finally going to find, which you already have found,
Yeah,
because they finally admitted in quantum mechanics that everything is a wave.
right.
Well, interesting about that.
Well, the
If
father of
everything is a
quantum,
wave, isn't that what frequencies and vibrations are waves?
exactly.
Right? And
Yeah,
they're not two dimensional like you see in an oscilloscope, they're three dimensional.
yeah.
And fourth, if
Well,
you add the time
and when you
component.
the father of quantum mechanics said himself that I've looked into this so deeply and it never ends. Ultimately, my conclusion is that mind is the matrix of all matter, right? That consciousness is the base of all physical creation. So
Mm-hmm.
if that's true, then yeah, I mean you have a mind and it's connected to that root, and that's the best way to know anything is to know yourself, right? Know thyself, right? So
Mm-hmm.
we should be focusing on our own personal evolutions, mental evolutions, and spiritual evolutions, and perceptions of reality, and keep
Should be our
curious.
own vibratory evolution,
Yeah, exactly.
because it doesn't matter what term or category you put the experiences that you would put into the category of a spiritual experience or an ethereal or an astral experience or a right here and now having a drink and a conversation experience. Doesn't matter how you categorize them. They're all exchanges of vibrations and energy that
Okay,
are all based, that all express themselves as waves.
that's right.
One of the things I like doing, I've been having fun poking at the physicists because I get involved in their groups and I follow a number of them, and I've been watching all of this consternation that's going on because the whole thing is falling apart, and it's, they're doing it themselves, and it's because of their own stupid shit. And God bless them, they deserve it. Couldn't imagine it happening to a nicer group of pencil pushers, but and pocket protectors. But um, when I go in there and I'll just drop simple questions. Just, I know it's going to send half a dozen of them off a cliff. And the easiest one, the most fun, is I get in there and say, "Hey, there's somebody be talking about time and space," and I'll say, "Well, I'm not too sure about time, although I've got a theory. But let me ask you about space. Is space is a vacuum, right? "Well, yeah. So nothing exists in a vacuum, right? Well, yeah. Well, then how in the hell are the planets, the stars, the suns, the galaxies, and everything else existing in a vacuum?" Well, it's this. You have to go back to the this model by this guy and do it. No, 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 no. Your own logic with the words you're using, and maybe your words are incorrect. Maybe you need to change the definitions and rearrange your words to make more sense, because the words you're using with the definitions that are attached to them are antithetical to what you're proffering. It
Yeah,
doesn't. You can't. It doesn't work.
right.
And then I, I love these folks that I get into some of the time travel groups, or in just time in general. Oh, there's no such thing as time. It's an illusion. Okay. Then why are there memories? Yeah. How does that work? And then, more simply, those folks that are, for the majority of them, that are focusing on this whole time and different timelines, different time splits, all these different things that just seem to be a bunch of fantastical DMT experience type definitions. But I look at it and go, well, you guys all basically agree with the whole quantum model of space, right? That space is there because objects exist in this thing called space. But the time is still the question, right? Like, well, yeah. So quantum mechanics has already said that everything is a wave.
Right.
And
There's
a
no
wave is
physical
not a
reality.
thing.
Right.
A wave is what something does, right? So that distinction, you got to make sure they get that. And then, okay. So a wave takes both time and space to wave in, right? Well, theoretically, according to this, like,
Yeah.
how do you define either your words are fucked up or your interpretation and your data are fucked up? And I suspect it's both of those and probably then some.
Yeah. I know, and I think that the idea of reality is so much different. Like people are closer to understanding the origins of the way things are by just looking at the nature of their own minds, looking at the nature of intelligence and consciousness and the flow of consciousness, and like you say, memories and our daily experiences, dreams, things that we go through. That's how we find better answers than looking to modern science that says, because all that stuff is corrupt. And I think that's going to be a huge part of the revolution is whenever science is set free. We saw it have freedom back in the early 1900s, late 1800s, and then it got completely taken over, and certain ideas were forced. But just like you say, like when you started examining these things, they don't make any sense. They tell you that the pyramids were built a certain way, but they can't. There's no way copper tool can cut a granite stone. So, when there's no way to actually put these things into practice and show people, oh yeah, look, see, it's how it works. It's just, oh, we hope it believe it because we have authority behind us, and you're just agreeing to the authority. You're not agreeing to the actual content, and you're not questioning the content. You're not looking at all the steps that it takes for that to be true. And
And
like you said,
how's the accuracy of that authority going right now? What's the
yeah,
credibility of that
it's
authority? How are
exactly
they doing on the track record
right,
path?
exactly. And I
They
think that's
suck.
that's going to be the huge revolution. Robert is going to be whenever, yeah, it's all about truth of information. And I think a lot of us, you know, we don't know what's true. We know that we know what's not true. We know that that's bullshit. And then it's like, well, what is true? Well, I don't necessarily know, but there's been a lot of people like Russell and Tesla and a lot of people that tell you what they think, and they're probably closer to the real truth. Um, and yeah, it's a more beautiful, amazing, immersive, expansive thing, and it's going to be mind blowing. People realize that what we actually are and what we're doing here and how things work is going to be just like fantasy compared to what we were told things are, and how things work. So I think that's going to be a huge, huge thing, and I think that's what's going to lead us to these new psychological shifts of collective reality. Because if all of us are walking around realizing that we're just you know a eternal consciousness, with all possibility and all knowledge accessible to us, if we are able to realize how powerful we really are, it's going to change everything about the way society functions and culture is downstream, right? So it's going to be like what happens to culture whenever we all make this
We
big
get to
shift.
we get to reimagine everything.
Yeah, and that's all happening right now. Like it just shifted, and I think we're still. I have a question whether the good guys are driving the wheel now, whether there's still some battles to be had. I don't know what level, they have been defeated. I think it's going to be, interesting, but from the mouthpieces of people leading the charge, it seems they're pretty confident. They're pretty confident that this is all going to happen pretty quick. And I also think they're out of time themselves. And certain people are certain ages, they don't have much time. They got to get it going. Um, I see, I see the release of this in 2020. The election was stolen. I think that they're going to go back, reinvestigate that. I think that may even that may even open up a third term, technically fourth term. Um, I think they're going to see some weird, wild stuff happen. But we're going to retroactively go back. We're going to go back to 9/11. We're going to go back to all of these places in history. We're going to go back to, like you said, JFK. Or we're going to go back to the creation of the Fed Reserve. We're going to go back in time, and we're going to review the history, and all that's going to be recorrected. Like, hey, by the way, that didn't happen. This happened because of this, and that's going to be crazy, right? There's some 90-year-olds are going to be realizing that their entire lives were a lie, and everything they were told was not true. It's going to be an incredible period to be alive. I think most of us, there's a huge line outside the heavens gate, and people want to get in this planet right now. They want to experience this. This is a huge shift. This is where everyone wants to be. We're in this crazy transition. We're all lucky to be here. We got front row seats, very expensive tickets. We're all,
Well, and to that point, Josh, we were talking about this last night. Um, I think those of us that are here having this conversation right now chose to be here to have this conversation right now,
yeah,
and chose to be here to be a part and of the facilitation of this transformative disruption.
right.
And and it's needed. Well, isn't it interesting that life is understood looking backwards while lived looking forward?
Yeah, that's right. And there's time right there. I mean, you're taking the past and learning the past is what changes your future, and I think that's where we're at. We're at this period where, like, everything was a lie. What really happened? And when all that data comes in, we have a new way forward. It's like we know now where we need to go and what we are and what to do with what we have. And it's a lot of systematic breakdowns. I mean, even you and I, we're going to have some things that are like, wow, I didn't see that coming. Um, and some theories, we want to be true because they're cool. They sound cool. I want Hollow Earth to be true. Of course, I want Hollow Earth to be true. That's super cool. Is it true? I don't know, but I think we're going to find out. I think we're going to, within our lifetime, know some of these big questions. We're going to know about Tartaria. We're going to know about Atlantis. We're going to know about alien intervention. We're going to know about contact. I mean, there's some heavy, crazy, crazy, big hitting things here. Um, and I think that stuff is just going to revolutionize the human mind. And I think that is going to pave a way forward that we can't anticipate. I mean, it's going to be a very wild experience moving forward. So the best thing to do is stay healthy and live as long as you can from where you're at, whatever vantage point you're at, whatever age you are. Um, you want to be here as long as possible.
Yeah.
And because it's about to get really exciting. It's about to get really exciting. Now, I still have some cautious. I'm still cautious about it. I do see things happening that are still like, there's still some stuff going on that's questionable. People that are involved, and once I start to see certain systems break down, like the Fed Reserve, these monetary systems, when I see the pharma empire get actually destroyed, I'll start to truly believe that this is happening. It sounds
Did
like
you
it's
hear
going to
about Did you hear about the big CEO meeting the day after the election
freaking
among all
out.
the all? So it's like five of the major pharma
Pharma execs.
CEOs
Yeah.
called an emergency meeting the next day in the afternoon. The There's a I can't think of her name, but there's a Pfizer lawsuit that's going on down in Texas against Pfizer. It's a whistleblower, Jessica. Can't think of her last name, but they have finally gotten to where they now are at discovery in the trial, which means that all of the data that she blew the whistle on has to be presented by Pfizer.
Yeah.
All of these pharmaceutical companies, the whole immunity clause is about to get ripped right
Yeah.
out.
That's right.
Um, the whole scam behind how and why that got put into place, and then the clear and obvious bullshit fallout from a decision like that are now on full display, and they're going to get even more exposed. The disinfectant of sunlight is going to be shown
That's.
on the pharmaceutical bullshit, right?
I would hate to be
Um,
Dr. Fauci right now, Robert.
oh, that I tell you what,
Where is
uh,
where is Dr. Fauci?
where he be,
I
where
mean,
you.
where's he at?
Well, yeah,
If there's anybody who deserves, it's Robert Kennedy. The things they've done to his family, the things that they've. I just see this. This is like a Rambo story, man. I mean, the guy's coming in, and he's got all the armor, and and all the weapons, and he's just gonna go in and just clean house. And I'm so excited about that. I feel like just watching him almost single handedly dismantle these people is going. And then Ron Paul, they're bringing Ron Paul in, and God, what an amazing end of story for Ron Paul. I mean, I voted
right.
for Ron Paul in 2012. Ron Paul is probably the cleanest, most honest, closest to real philosopher in
Mm-hmm.
politics.
Mm-hmm.
There's nobody cleaner than him. He's a strict constitutionalist. The guy wants old America. The
Can you
fact that he's
imagine him at the head of the Fed?
That's what I'm saying. The fact
He'd
that
go in and
he's
he there would be no Fed when he got
exactly, and I don't think there's going to be a Fed, Robert. I don't think
I
it's gonna.
agree.
I think it's beautiful for them to let him in and like, hey, here you go, old man. You've been fighting these demons your entire life. You got
You've
the
earned
election
this.
stolen from you. I mean, they stole that 2012 from him.
Well,
He
it's
was
kind
one
of
of the.
like throwing Kennedy in charge of HHS.
That's what I mean. It's
And
like
then
you
oh,
have
so
this.
let's really make it interesting and throw Musk and Vivek at government efficiency.
I
I mean,
know. It's
the
like, are you fucking
slaughter is
kidding
going to
me?
be that's going to be a reality show in
I
itself.
know. And that's why we should have more conversations about it as it unfolds because it is something that um, is just incredible to sit back and watch and discuss. I mean, we've never seen anything like this. And until when I see the Federal Reserve get taken down, which I think it will, I think they'll move it to the Treasury. I think that we're going to have sound money, and I think it's going to be a short move into temporary systems that then move into, like you say, blockchain systems, and
Hmm.
free energy gets released, and then that system that will be the new system, which was the old system, will now just be irrelevant, and then we'll move into something that's just completely new. And then whenever we have the ability to say, hey, we're not having to work to produce things, we have now tech, we have robots, we have AI, we have free energy to power these things. What do we do with the time we have? And that's the next question. Like, what do we do with the time we have whenever we're
Oh,
not slaving away?
the liberation of the curiosity, the inspiration, the motivation of the human individual, having the sovereignty of self, having the ability to really stop and think about what are my peccadillos?
Yeah,
What are my preferences? What are the things that what are my biases?
right,
Just the liberation of the fact that bias is a good thing. It's not only a good thing, it's our default. It's how we fucking work. So
right,
when you take the thing that's been demonized and you reframe it into the reality of what it is and you take advantage of that, you learn from it and you're able to take it and manifest it, either make more of it or mitigate it depending on what that bias may be. Learning why you have the bias, what it is that what's the resonance that you resonate with, what's that frequency set. The lady we had on last night, our friend Heidi, she teaches in kind of a Rudolf Steiner kind of a Waldorf school kind of model, and so they don't have any of the regular curriculum bullshit that you see in the schooling system, which is not education, it's schooling.
yeah,
It's like Twain famously quipped, "I never let my education get in the way of my schooling."
right.
The other way
Well,
around, never let my schooling get in the way of my education.
well, and
And
yeah, that's been an
and
indoctrination center. That's one reason why everybody's so stupid.
so the entire education or learning system is going to transform dramatically using these new technologies. It's also going to transform organically from the standpoint, and we're already seeing this. You can, there's a number, there's Skillshare, there's a whole bunch of places, Udemy, a number of freelance sites where you can go where people have these incredible expertise and skill sets that are demonstrable. And you can go buy their course, you can go buy their book, You can go get one-on-one training and webinars and instruction that are far superior from any of the bullshit that are in the academic institutions that we have
Right.
now. That model, I think, is going to continue to grow and become even more interesting and create opportunities for people that they didn't even think that was available to them, let alone that they had the skill
Right.
to do.
Well,
A
just
lot of
imagine
people,
imagine a small child, Robert, never ever being indoctrinated. Right? Imagine a small child growing up in a world where
exactly.
there's free energy. Hey, you're being taught that, hey, by the way, I want to let you know that you're an eternal soul, and here's how things really work, and here's how energy works, and here's how your thoughts, transfer energy, and this is how I mean, imagine a society of people raised like that. I mean, it's going to be we're not going to be the same people. We're not going to be the same humans.
Hmm.
And I think that's what you see when you look at the ancients and you look at the ancient Vedas, and you try to imagine these type of societies and these golden ages. I mean, that's what happened. Like, they were not indoctrinated. They were given true information. They were taught at a very early age. They never were told the unicorn wasn't real, right? They were told that these things do exist, that there are, mental powers that you grow up with.
I think
And
they were more in touch and regularly by default of what what's incorrectly termed natural law. There is no law. Law is a humanoid, a man-made construct. To me, it's the natural order of things. It's the ways that things manifest and express themselves. There's habits and there's nature and there's consistency and there's anomalies, but there's a general set of attributes that are consistent, and that is the only thing that we know is our experience of those things, and then how we
right,
interact with them, how we process them, how we adapt them, and then how we move forward with them. Because information at the end of the day is all that we have. We get information and then we speculate on it. And that's what we do every microsecond of every component of our thought and our reality and our sense of self and our awareness. We are constantly interrogating the information that we are presented with. Making an informed interrogation of that information is done by stripping away the bullshit and getting to the nut of the nugget.
yeah,
What is the reality of what it is that I'm trying to deal with, that I'm trying to learn about, that I'm trying to analyze, I'm trying to assimilate, whatever it might be. It's just about the information. Get all the bullshit away from it.
yeah,
Then you'll get to the truth. Because
right.
as we're
And
saying,
and you said language. Language is important. How we talk to each other. When we say things like we can be the change that we want to be, like Claudette said,
mm-hmm,
how do we actually act that out? Well, don't be afraid to start speaking in a language that assumes a greater world, a greater consciousness. When you talk to people, you tell them, like, did you feel that? Yeah. Well, I mean, assume that these things are real and tell people, like, you know whenever you think of somebody and they call, right, that's because you received the message prior to the actual text, right? Like, these things are reality. We have to start living in this new world, like that. Everything that we think about and we have a thought about somebody, that affects them. So keep your thoughts clean, like, and send positive energy to people. Be kind to people, like these people that have been really annoying. And I think it's really annoying that, for people that have been awake, it's very annoying to watch these people that just will not give up their chains and their shackles, and they defend the demons, they defend the people that are trying to break free. You're helping them break free from it. It's very frustrating, but we can't
well, that's
demonize
because
them either. Yeah, we can't demonize these
they're under a
people.
delusion,
They're
though.
under a delusion, right?
They
So there
don't
has to be a
realize
level
that,
of empathy,
and
and there
so
has to be some level of approach that we can have, that's like, guys, like, I'm here to help you wake up. I know it's tough. I know this is not easy, but we're here to help. We're here to help people move into the transition, and don't be like, um, don't go the other direction. Don't get negative with it. We just need
you
to,
don't have to go in any direction. You just have to at least be
yeah,
open enough to just have a peek, have a glance, have a
yeah,
listen,
but have
and
open
see.
conversations,
Yeah, and have an open conversation, which
right?
is what you and I have been doing for close to the last 2.5 hours.
Yeah,
2.5 hours. It feels like 30 minutes, but
I know, it's wild. We'll have to continue the conversation and join in certain subjects that are happening in real time, because you're going to start seeing things that are just wild. 1 year from now, it's not going to be the same. Society in a lot of reasons. You're going to see a lot of just complete takedowns of these old systems, and I think that everyone's going to benefit from this, and I hope that that's the proof that gets people to jump on board. Um, you know, evil, evil. You don't. Evil's getting destroyed right now. It's getting put in its place. It can never be completely gone. I think that whenever we move into these higher cycles of time, I think that it just gets diminished down to a level of ineffectiveness. It will eventually at some point have room to grow, but the idea of going around and telling people like, oh, I was right, you were wrong, you're an idiot, or these kind of things, it's probably not the best way to approach it. What we need to do is invite these people into the conversation and say, like, let's talk about what has been going on together
I
and
am I'm
have a conversation.
completely I'm completely in alignment and resonant with that, but I'm just going to have to toss this in just because. As an old senior seasoned citizen that has been poked, prodded, yelled at, shoveled on, stepped on, and shoved aside for over 20 years on this stuff, there's a wee bit of a buildup of, okay, I, I'm sorry that you feel that way. And I'm really sorry for you that you said all of those things that were so full of shit for so long. And now you're having to realize that what I was telling you was right when you were saying it was wrong. And I appreciate, I'm going to give you a little space for that. But there's going to be a real short window of where an apology, and don't even have to go to your knees. You don't even have to buy me something. You
Yeah.
just have to acknowledge that you were so fucking wrong for so fucking long, and you were shoving it up my ass for so long that I might have a little built up pressure. I might be ground off just a little bit, and I'm sorry in advance if I get in your face and tell you you were a fucking idiot. You fucking deserve everything that you're experiencing right now. You fucking deserve the mocking that you're getting from everyone else who now realize and are telling you the same thing I'm telling you. But you have a choice. You have a chance. You can come over to the dark side, to the dork side. We have pie.
Yeah.
And you
No, it
can
is
learn
tough.
the
It
reality that you have
it
ignored and denied for
yeah.
so long, and we will embrace you and your transformation.
Yeah.
But don't pipe up and don't peep up and don't start poking around with the same shit again, because we're going to put that down instantly.
Yeah. Yeah. That shit ain't gonna work anymore. It's not gonna work. I mean, and the people that are really committing. I mean, we're talking about people with just brainwashed ideologies, but the people that are actually committing crimes, people that are those people need to be gone. Like, they need to be shot, hanged. They need to be off the
And
planet.
you know, are you of the same mind? To me, there is no mercy for them.
No, there's no mercy for them. They don't belong here. Um, yeah, you've been eating humans, drinking blood, involved in any type of the networks that are causing all these crimes to kids, and even the pharmaceuticals, right? These guys, these CEOs, and that's what I was having a conversation with a client of mine. I was like, look, whenever you have videos of these people doing this stuff, shit gets cleaned really quick. I mean, it's not like, oh, they have to go through this governmental process. Like, you've been screwing kids, you're gone. And unfortunately, it's a large percentage of a lot of people that are in positions of power. It's unbelievable how pervasive it is. So things can
Hmm.
happen pretty quick whenever Epstein, Diddy, Snowden, Assange, when all that data is released, you're going to see 1% of people standing in Hollywood, 1% of people standing in pharmaceutical empire, 1% of people standing in the financial empires, in the colleges. I mean, in every single aspect of our society, they're all involved, and that's how we clean the house.
Hmm.
It's like a flood of light comes in, scatters the rats, and I think we put them in a cage and you know throw them in a volcano.
You know,
Like,
it almost, I agree with that. It almost reminds me of I remember growing up, as we all have on our journey, we live in some very unsavory places, especially the ones that are occupied by the cockroach clan, and they're scurrying about, and how awesome it was when you finally came home with that big old can of Raid, and you sprayed it, and they all just they either fucking rolled over and little wiggled their feet until they were dead, or they scurried off and they were gone.
Yeah,
I'm talking right now. I think we just got a cosmic can of Raid, and I
that's
think
right.
I think it's been delivered, and I think it's been set in place, and it's an endless supply, as basically as much as is needed. We've been given a can and our finger on the button. It has to be used judiciously and with consideration. And as you know, we've been talking there, the majority of the people that fell under this foolishness don't know that they did, and they have to have consideration and empathy. The folks that perpetrated this shit and have been
Yes.
proffering it and profiting from it, those are the ones that need to basically, here's a can of Raid, I'm shoving it down your throat later.
Yeah,
There'll be a
I'm all
cleanup
for
crew
public
to come along.
hangings, man. I think public
I,
hangings.
I'm with
I
you.
think that would do really well for people. I think it's going to show. I mean, imagine a scenario where you have a young child and you're letting them know like these people committed these atrocities, and we're going to get to see them, you know, be strung up on a noose like the old ways, and that's going to create a pretty big psychological impact for whatever ones are left out there.
I
Um,
saw a number of
I'm
people saying, "Make the French Revolution great again.
Yeah, I think we're
Bring
I
back the
think we're
guillotines."
yeah, I think we're there, and I think people agree. I think we do need gallows. We need for the people that committed this stuff. I mean, they've created mass murder, um, decimated society. They've prevented revolutions and all kinds of things happening. They're complicit in the worst things that have ever happened on the planet. They need to go. They need to go now. Don't throw them in jail and give them meals, and don't try to convert them into all this. Like, sorry, um, this is where we cleanse it. And those people that were just brainwashed, yeah, I mean, we got to help them out. They're going to have a lot of problems in the new world. I mean, frequencies don't match. There's people that are very negative oriented, and they're very pessimistic. They're depressed. It's going to be really tough for those people. I think there's a natural cycle of them just not being able to handle it and phasing out in multiple different ways. But there are some people that are good people. They're just been brainwashed, and those are the ones that we have to help out. But I think you're going to see that through action. I think that once society gets better and things get cheaper and all these things, all these systems of control get released from their lives, they're going to feel that change, and I think that's going to immediately put them in a different state of mind. And ultimately, when people have more money and they have a better life, things like that, they start to care less about their political views. They'd rather it stay. I mean, you take away the IRS, and they're never going to want it back, right? And so it's like, oh, I hate this dude, but wow, I'm glad that I'm making 30% more than I was. So
Yeah,
I think
there's a
there's,
lot of stuff that's going to get removed that is going to be never go back to stuff,
yeah, and I think that's
which
going to
is
happen.
great,
Yeah,
right?
I think that's going to happen. I think, um, yeah. So yeah, we're on this cusp of major change. I'm hoping that it all plays out the way that it sounds like it's going to. It does seem a little too good to be true right now. But uh, I mean, who knows? I mean, we will see in the next 6, 7, 8 months. We're gonna know how real it really is. It does look like it's been orchestrated and planned. It does look like we have, um, a team in place, military helping out, global military is helping out, China, Russia. It does look like this is a concerted effort, and there is a group of people out there that I won't name that have been perpetrating most of this stuff,
You
and
wouldn't
they're under.
be thinking about the Elohim worship cult, would you?
Yeah,
And the
yeah, and
Karzarian
they're not even
mafia.
real, right? They're not even like they're not who they say they are.
All right.
They're the ultimate deceivers. And I think that when I do see some of these people that are getting involved still within the new administration, so I don't like seeing that. I don't know whether there's some control still happening. I think the big thing for me is when we see the Fed go down, the pharmaceutical empire go down, um, because in no universe would that ever be allowed, um,
Right.
under any systematic control. Right? They're never going to just say, "Oh, okay, we're going
Well,
to."
under anything that's based on common sense.
Yeah. So I think if we see that happening, um, then we know it's probably pretty legit. If the Epstein list gets released, that's going to take down so many people. The Diddy and Epstein list alone is going to just take down everybody. So when we start seeing that stuff really happen, like they're saying they're gonna do, and how they're positioning these people, I think that you're going to see some real revolutions, and that will wake enough people up. I mean, it's going to people are already starting to wake up, but that's going to be a huge surge of
The
awakening
rise
for
of the
people.
pissed off peeps, man. I've been watching it build, and it's like all of a sudden, here it is, and we're sitting here actually experiencing it, living it, watching it, participating in it, marinating in it, dare we say? Because I got to tell you, after that election, it took me a couple of days. I didn't do shit. I knew that so I had back on our geezer show on August 31st. I said, all right, we're out from the election, but here's my prediction. By the middle of August, it'll be clearly over. The rest of the activities will simply be a formality. The election will be called before the polls close because the energy is just going there. Well, I was right about all that, but not to what I missed was the abject, full on, blown, just distinctive turn. It
Yeah.
was it was so profound. I thought it was going to. I said it was going to be a landslide. I didn't think it was going to be a bitch slap landslide.
But it was also not the real numbers. You
This
did
is
notice.
true.
I mean, it was more of a bitch slap landslide than it was even shown.
That's right.
I mean, he had 400 on the
Yeah, easy,
electoral, easy,
easy.
and he's gonna, he's got a big ego. He's not gonna let go of that. He's gonna go back and he's gonna say, "Look what I really got," and then he's gonna go back in 2020, like, "Look what really happened," because
Well, one
they're
of the
gonna be
things
able
that
to
I was
prove that.
one of the things I was prognosticating on was the possibility that before he won the 2024 election, it would come out that he actually won 2022.
Yeah, I think
And
2020.
that is going to come out. It has to come out in order to
Yeah,
affect the correction to the system.
right.
I don't think at this point, especially after dodging a bullet, figuratively and literally, Trump seems like a different man to me. He doesn't. I don't think there's any ego shit going on right now. It seems to me that he's in legacy mode, and he's
Yeah,
looking at it going, I definitely have some divine intervention and guidance going on here. There is no reason for all of these incredibly talented people to all of a sudden be here at the same time, right when they're needed, and I can marshal them together to affect a generational, multi generational change. I think this is it's not even it's beyond his Waterloo. It is something where I think he has a conscious realization of a transformative change agent.
yeah,
I think he was also, just like you and I and the others we talked about, he chose to be here for this.
yeah,
And so this is, you can call it divine, you can call it, to me it's just the order of the universe and the way that it has its yin and yang, its natural ebb and flow, its corrective nature of self. And I think that's what we're seeing. And I got to tell you, brother, being on the right side of this change before it happened, how's that feel?
I mean, it feels really good. I mean, there was a lot of different theories, the Q stuff and everything. And again, I don't emotionally ever attach to a certain thread, but I do watch it very closely because I want to know which one is
It's
true.
a,
And
it's a data point of the
it's just
narrative
data.
that's going
It's
on.
I'm an info junkie, just like you
Yeah.
are, and I want more information. The more information that I read, whether it be crazy, I mean, there's things I read a lot about that I don't believe are true. I don't necessarily believe the ice wall is true, but I'll read all kinds of things about it because it's kind of cool. I mean, if it's not true, it's cool fantasy. Um,
I just
and
wish those flat earthers would just do a GoFundMe to go find the edge. and just,
Yeah, I
I mean, if
mean,
they can't do a reality show to go find the fucking edge, which is not there, otherwise it would have been found a long time ago.
yeah.
But especially with the penetration and the plethora of the human species around the planet now, with just the tech we've got. I mean, come on, folks. But I
But
mean,
when you
but
look at
I,
when you
but
look at what
I would
happened,
put that, I would put that in the recreational speculation category.
yeah, yeah.
It's
what's
fun to go,
happening here
have a think
with
about it, but that's about it.
with Trump? I mean, it's like this guy. This didn't just come out of nowhere. He's been in this sphere for long periods of time. You can go back and look at things he said 30 years ago about running for president, cleaning up corruption, doing these things. It's very interesting. It looks like he's kind of known about this stuff for decades that he was going to get involved. There was tweets that go back to like 2015 that you can look at where he's or even earlier, I think 13 or something, or whenever some of the earliest Twitter tweets he was posting that somebody was saying, well, why don't you go change it? And he's like, be careful. And, it's like, this looks a little planned. It looks like there's been talks about this stuff many, many years prior to his run in 2016. It looks like he has help. It looks like there's a big coordination going on. I don't understand how he could have done this fly by the seat of his pants, not with the way that the cabal has had their fingers in every single pie. And, they, after 2001, they had a pretty hard grip on the planet and they were in control. And to think that one guy can go and disrupt all that is just kind of unbelievable to me. So it does look like there is this, positive order, positive Freemasonry type of thing. There's connected networks of individuals that are, like the Jedi that have been, looking to hold on to freedom and light and truth, and they all decided at one point, hey, these nefarious groups of people that have been kicked out of countries for thousands of years and taken over the systems and infiltrating, like, it's time to take them out. It's time to get in and take them out. We're done with this shit. We're all tired of it. They're killing everybody. They're taking our stuff. They're and it looks like it was a concerted effort to me. And whether the Q stuff was real or not, there's a lot of fascinating things that go on with that
Some
stuff. That's
very
just,
interesting
I
things,
mean, some
and
of it just no way it can be on. It's just there's no way, and there's no way
well,
that
have
they can
you
be.
noticed? I haven't. I've got a few friends that pay attention to it, so I just kind of tap into whatever their latest flow is within that. But it seems to me the Q, the Anons, the QAnons, whatever groups out there, they've been very quiet since this
Yeah,
election. Have you
yeah.
noticed that, or is that just me?
Well, I'm still listening to the stuff, and let's say that the general idea has come true. I thought that I was going to see. Remember when the National Guard was activated this last
Hmm.
election, and it did look like you were talking about how quickly it happened. It did look like in a lot of places, especially swing states, it did look like the National Guard had said, no, no, you're counting them tonight. Something told them, nope, you ain't delaying this. And people said, oh, it was the lawsuits. It's like it wasn't the lawsuits. There was something else going on. There was people with guns and shit saying, nope, you're going to count them. You're going to release it tonight, because they were already saying there was going to be 2 hours, oh, and an extra 2 days or this and that. Oh, but all of a sudden we knew by midnight. It's like, how the hell did that happen?
Well,
So
Josh, you know what I think happened as far as the whole fraud mechanism? First of all, our election systems are designed to be unauditable. So
yeah,
there's no way anyone can know for sure that something is free and fair and accurate, because it's
yeah,
just not designed for that. Going back to what we talked about earlier, there's no transparency.
yeah,
But I think what happened is all of the shit they pulled in 2020, 4 years of investigation, looking at systems, and
yeah.
unveiling this and that. This time around, there was so many people watching where all the fucking holes were before, that the people that were standing by the holes said, "Oh shit, I'm going to get caught."
That's right.
So I think that's really these idiots on the left going, "Oh, now you're saying there was a free and fair election and there was no fraud found magically." It's like, yeah, because we were watching you fuckers and you were
Yeah,
afraid to pull the trigger,
yeah,
dumbass.
yeah. And
I
and
mean,
and coincidentally, the only ones that went blue were the ones without voter ID, right? I mean, it's like, give me a
explain that one,
break.
Lucy.
Yeah, I mean, I think half of those went red,
Yeah.
and so there was still a lot of cheating, but we overdid. We pumped the system. and it was just too much for them to handle. They couldn't cheat that big. And now you're looking at where these 20 million people go last election. Like, what happened there? There's 20 million just out of nowhere, gone. So, like you said, I think they're going to go back. They're going to look. They're going to find out what really happened, and that's going to change everything going forward. We're going to have probably the most fair and honest elections going forward from this point than we have in 100 years. I mean, Mark Twain has a quote, right? If voting made a difference, they wouldn't let us do it. So there's been people that known about this bullshit for 100 years. It's not like this just started happening. It's just that most of the presidents were still on the same side, and it was more like in-house fighting, much like the European wars, where, oh, my cousins are fighting each other over land because they're spoiled and they want more of his, but they're still just all related and in control. So that's been going on in the presidential sphere for a long time, and now it's over. It seems like, from this point on, we're going to have honest and clear elections. They're going to be done right, and that alone is going to change everything, right? When the will of the people are actually heard, and you're looking at how he's going to do term limits on these people. Like, there's not going to be this embedded freaking legacy corruption that's going to be able to stick around for 50, 60 years.
Well, so on the topic of the election and correcting it, I'm going to play a short little vid here that I think you might find quite fascinating and analogous to our conversation. Let's see here.
Okay, go ahead.
Normal day in America. Hi there, crypto fans. Hi there, remote viewing fans. Dick Allgaier here. Beautiful day at Ethereum Place. I'm wearing my I don't give a flip shirt. This is the shirt that a guy came up to me randomly at the Litecoin conference in 2019, 5 years ago, and said, Dick, I have a shirt for you. And I love it, and I wear it when I'm just going to go off. So I'm going to go off today. Is this the last normal day in America? Is the crap about to hit the fan? Cliff High thinks so. We have data that indicates that. Of course, we're talking about the election. Okay, here's what the election's about. The purpose of the election is to create friction. The purpose of the election is to create friction. The purpose of the election is to create tension. The purpose of the election is to create chaos. It's not about determining who's going to be the top administrator of the corporation that is the United States of America. That's determined at a much higher level. This is about breaking things down. We have machines that don't work that can be programmed. We have ballot boxes that are left out unattended in the open, and anybody could just drop pretty much anything in it. You have people that are not legally in the country allowed to just show any kind of ID. You have paper ballots that aren't verified, that they don't check the signature, they don't know where they came from. So the whole thing is a shambles. And it doesn't really engender trust. It's not to create trust, it's to create tension. Another thing that doesn't create trust is the so-called news media. And I can speak with authority on this one because I was a reporter for 30 years. And I'm ashamed to admit it now, but back when I was a reporter, back 20 years ago, we at least had we at least, gave the illusion of trying to be objective. I covered a lot of presidential elections. I talked to senators, congressmen, mayors, city council members, neighborhood board members. None of them ever knew my politics, and I never would have called them a name or accused them of being a racist, a Nazi, a fascist, misogynist. It just wasn't done. What we would do back in the day would, if somebody called somebody else a racist, we probably wouldn't have put that on. We would have had an editorial meeting about that one, and they would have had to have good evidence. What we would do would present both sides as objectively as possible, give differing opinions, and then the facts that we put out, we would attempt to verify, and we would use attribution. So we would say, so-and-so, this official agency says, and now we have a term called fact checking. which is another of those terms created by those controlling you, programming you mentally. It's like conspiracy theory, fact checks, same psychological warfare type of term. So there's no news. MSNBC, they don't do news. CNN doesn't do news. Fox News, they don't do news. The New York Times doesn't publish news. The Washington Post certainly doesn't publish news. It's all opinions, and it's all meant to inflame you and to divide you. So what we have is a situation where 50% of the country, whatever begins to unfold tomorrow, they're going to be horrified and damn pissed off about it. So to say that, is this the last normal day? This may be the last day before the chaos ensues, but certainly we left normal some time ago. I mean, normal was abandoned. It was a gradual but insidious process that we've been following. And those of us who realize this is not normal, we're just kind of shaking our heads and going, wow.
So what'd you think of that?
Yeah, I mean, he's right on. I mean, we're emerging. This is like a psychological 9/11. Like it's all going to change after. You know, it's interesting that the Mayans predicted this stuff, right? Like these 2012, 12 years after 2012, and we're in a new world.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. It's like,
well, this is the one I actually shared the wrong one that was not related to what we just said. So let me, this one's about 4 minutes, same guy, and this relates to the change in the technology.
Changes are coming to our election system. Hi there, crypto fans. Dick Allgaier here. Another beautiful day at Ethereum Place. We've been talking about this at Future Forecasting Group for a number of years. It's the basic problem reaction solution. So we have an election system that is just a complete mess with mail-in ballots and requiring voter ID or not requiring voter ID, election day spanning months and weeks. The whole thing is just broken and on purpose. So what we've been saying is that we're going to go to a digital identity and it will be done on the blockchain. Everything is going to be conducted on the blockchain so that those who own this place can have a continuous real-time record of all transactions. So this just was leaked from the Trump team. Breaking President amazing. Trump and the upcoming Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE, are exploring a federal blockchain-based election voting and identity verification system. According to sources familiar with the matter, the system will be built in partnership between X, Cardano, Hyperledger, and Hedera. Our favorite, Hedera HBAR, that's one of the new upcoming blockchains that's going to help run the new world. So they're going to have e-vote, and there are more details. But the operative word here is verification. Verification. When you buy cryptos, you need to do what they call KYC, know your customer. They have to verify your identity, and they do that by you sending in a photo of yourself and stating that you're going to buy cryptos. So the biometric authentication is key here. So they're getting you into this new system step by step, slowly, step by step. So we're going to have a new system that's going to be built on blockchain. And by the way, I think Hedera is about 7 cents today, and when it goes up to $14, that'll be a big deal for those of us who have HBAR. So The system will be trustless in that it will be verified by the blockchain. You won't need a third party to verify your identity when you vote because you'll be already authenticated with your digital ID. So it will be trustless. It will be verifiable. That's the key word, verifiable. And verifiable, make no mistake, means digital identity. So illegal aliens don't have a verifiable identity, so they won't be able to vote. Trump has been installed, or is going to be installed, to oversee the bankruptcy of the United States of America. He and Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy are going to totally disrupt the old system. The whole system has had its time. It's broken. It's too big. It's too expensive. It's bankrupt.
Yep.
And they're going to gut it, and we're going to bring in a new system employing the technology of blockchain distributed ledger. So that's just a verification of what we've been saying for years. We tell you what's coming over the horizon at Future Forecasting, futureforecastinggroup.com. You can get a membership today. Those of you that have cryptos, you can afford the founder level membership and get the really good.
I've been following Dick and the guys, Daz, Edward, Naeem. Been following these guys actually for over 12 years, back when they were working with Courtney Brown at the Farsight Institute down in Atlanta. But interesting concept there. He's saying exactly what you and I were just talking about that needs to be done in order to correct this unverifiable system. The transparency isn't there, so you can't validate or verify it. There is no way in which it can be audited. So there's no way to say that with any credibility that it is a credible and fair and free. I mean, that term needs to be taken out of the whole fucking thing. It's a process. It's like, and why in the hell aren't there at for federal elections, why isn't there a standardized system across all the states?
Yeah. Well, we know why. But there's also not going to be a lot of illegals here. So the problem is going to kind of fix itself. And when you take out 15, 20 million people and make sure everybody is legal, then the only people that can vote are Americans anyway. I mean, you're going to.
Well, wasn't it interesting how as soon as it was obvious that Trump won, all the caravans started disbanding down south of the border?
I mean, and that Holman guy, dude.
Oh man, he is.
I can watch him all day long. That's crazy.
He's right out of central casting for this role.
Yeah, right.
I mean, he's what Heidi call him, a bobblehead. I mean, this guy, and he absolutely, there's no shit involved. If there's anybody that can even produce a shit, the prisoner will be taken. I mean, this guy is a pit bull mad dog, and it's like, well, if I had a problem that was that immense that was going to take some serious cojones, I'd want somebody with that kind of characteristics.
Yeah, absolutely.
In fact, if you had him in central casting, I'd pick him for the job.
Let's plan on having another conversation here in, I would like to have one once a month as we move forward, at least because there's going to be so much changing in the next, I mean, we have 2 more months, a little more, and then it's starting to really hit. I have some theories that we can share maybe next time on the financial sector, what might happen. But I do want to continue the conversation and really stay on top of it, because it is interesting. I mean, this is the time that everyone needs to get together and start talking about what's going on so that we can all share our knowledge.
I think I totally agree. And I think this new generation of energy transformation needs to be reported on. Yeah. It needs to be observed. It needs to be analyzed. It needs to be speculated on. It needs to be just tossed into the theater of ideas and what's going on, because it needs to be monitored. We've been monitoring the bullshit, and that bullshit has finally been relieved from our monitoring duties. We now have a whole new data set to go focus on and to spend our energy and time and consciousness and thought on. And oddly enough, it's some of the best shit I've ever seen in my life to go ponder and consider and monitor. I'm like, Yeah,
Yeah,
I want to go to this show. This to me is like buying the e-ticket at Disneyland.
yeah,
We get all the rides and
every
you
day.
walk right up in line.
That's right.
And so we've at Disneyland, they had one of my favorite places was Tomorrowland. I think we just got an e-ticket to Tomorrowland, and we need to get on this ride and give a blow by blow and a report along the way to the rest of humanity.
Amen, brother. I really appreciate you inviting me on the show. Thanks for everybody that did tune in to listen. It's been a lot of fun. Hope to come back and every day I'm listening to 3 or 4 hours of just information across the board about what's happening because my head's on a swivel. It's unbelievable all the data that's coming in, and we're not even in yet. I mean, it's going to
We
be a
just got
wild.
started.
Yeah, I already have Christmas vibes. I already got my gift. And I
Yeah,
think
amen.
I think right now what people need to do is position properly, financially position properly. And if you position properly, you're going to be able to succeed really, really well as this stuff unfolds. We're probably going to have another 6 months of watching this financial stuff wave in and out, up and down. But once they start really getting the engine going and some of these things change, I think it's just going to be a climb. And so those people that are tuning in, like, just keep reading, keep making good decisions and about what you're doing with your money, and um, moving it into some of these new currencies, moving into some of these new platforms, investing in the stocks that are going to boom and rise, that are based off of these new platforms, these new media groups that are coming out, blockchains. Position yourself, get out of the fiat dollar, move into systems they're going to be the new system, and you're going to be in a really good position to be able to relax, enjoy the ride, and watch society change in front of your eyes. And if you have kids, I'd be really excited about their future too, because it's
Yeah,
going to be,
you will be fruitful and multiply if
yeah,
you pay attention to what's going on. And for those of you that are, trying to swim the void and figure out, what do you hold on to, what's the flotation device, and where the piers are and the
yeah,
docks, um, that's what we are trying to do our best of. We are at least at a minimum taking an independent, completely biased view of the data that's out there, and trying to cast some kind of understanding, some kind of perspective about what it is. And the reason that we're doing is not only because we're here to do that, but because at this point we're kind of going, well, the track record we've got compared to all these experts and everything else out there, we're kind of leaning on, yeah, we got a good track record. Maybe we should see how we should ride this track record as far as we can and leverage it to the benefit of humanity, not just ourselves, because
right,
this is a transformative period for humanity, not just the little niches and the groups of ideology and sciences and theologies and all these other delineations that define the reality we inhabit. This is a reset for the reality we inhabit and the way that we see it and perceive it and experience it and navigate it. And if you are looking at it in with the fullest view of the field of information as possible, you'll have a better chance navigating a much smoother and more productive ride through the reality that we're all navigating our way through. So, having said all that, thank you, Josh. It's been too long, and this is the restart of making sure that we're out there trying to see what's happening and trying to just understand it, because it takes all of us. Because at the end of the day, we are all one in many, and we are also many in one.
that's right.
And recognizing and realizing that and sharing it and engaging in it, that's where the power and the magic of living in the reality we
Yeah,
inhabit
that's
is.
right. We don't need to be afraid to speak the truth now, just like Big said. It's time to speak it. It's time to get on the mics, talk about it, show everybody that you're not alone, help everybody wake up. We don't need to know all the answers. We just need to know that everybody's on the same page. We're all thinking about it. We all want the same things. And we're here to help each other move through the new world. It's all going to unfold before our eyes. So, you know, uh, we'll continue the conversation, and there's going to be plenty of stuff to go through as we go along these next 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 weeks. It's going to be a hell of a Christmas season, I'll tell you that.
I think as soon as the election was over, I had this sense that the holidays were going to be lit.
I think so too. And then next year, Christmas is going to be crazy.
I think all of
This
our
is
holidays next year are going to be on an extra level of awesomeness like we haven't seen, and it's going to take a lot of us old seasoned citizens back to days when we used to go, oh yeah, that's why that was so good to go to the holiday of the 4th of July and shoot fireworks and cook burgers and shit. And it's going to
it's going to
be
be a Norman Rockwell Christmas next year.
yeah, I'm with you. I'm thinking that's exactly. Well, Josh,
So
I'm gonna put links in the description to you so that people can find you on Facebook and your Ancient Amnesia page, which uh, you're actually starting to kick that thing back up, aren't you?
yeah, I'm Ancient Amnesia. YouTube is I've been doing. I have some land. I've been doing some crystal hunting on there. So I'm kind of there's a little bit of mixture between old conversations that we've had. Me and Robert's on there multiple times. But you guys can go to Ancient Amnesia YouTube, find me there. I'm going to start having more of these type of conversations and just a mixture of things. But there's some cool crystal fossil hunting stuff that I do, that I have some land, and it's really awesome stuff. So if you're into that, go check that out. Also, there's over 100 podcasts of really cool conversations about ancient history, lost knowledge, esoteric wisdom, things like that. Robert's in many of those. We've done a lot of cool stuff in the past, and then I'm going to continue. It's a time thing, and as I move forward, I'll try to pump out a couple pieces of good content per month. But until then, you can also go to my Facebook, which has over about 60,000 followers on Ancient Amnesia Facebook, and it's just a fun place. So jump on there, join the conversation. There's also a discussion group. But yeah, I mean, I'll try to do this with you as much as I can, and review the topics. Maybe we can have just something that's a regular review of what went on in the month. Like let's break it down, because it's going to be a lot of changing things, and we're going to need to recap what's happening and
Well, yeah,
share the knowledge.
and I remember that I owe you a trip out to the ranch out there and do a live stream or some events out there. But yeah, we need to do this. I'm so glad that we got the opportunity to do it before, and even more glad that we can do it now when we've got better toys, better tools, and most importantly, we got some of the best shit to talk about, take a look at, analyze, and share than I've ever seen in my lifetime. And doing it with you is a lot of fun, my friend.
Hey man,
It's
it
great to
is,
have a
man.
conversation with somebody that is actually there.
I appreciate that. I'm just trying to follow in the footsteps, my friend. You've been at it for quite some time, but anybody who's curious and obsessed with information, they got a lot of stuff in their head, and it needs to get out. And then, so the pressure valve needs to be released, right? So
Yeah, well, it's like I say, when anybody shows up to a stream that we're doing, it's because just like us, they don't have anything better to do. So we're trying to sit there and just say, well, let's go knock some nuggets around in our
yeah,
noggins and
make it
see
as
what we come
entertaining
up
as
with.
possible. Right. We're no Rogan, but we try.
Yeah, yeah. Look out, Joe. that that sound you hear is us crawling your way. Well, Josh, hang on a second. I'll end the stream, and everybody else have a great week. And we'll try to get some of these scheduled and get some notifications out so that there's a little more heads up. This was an impromptu. We decided to just knock it out and have fun because we've done that before, and it's time to do it again because there's a lot more reasons to do more of it.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, guys. Thanks for being here. I'll see you soon.
All right, take care.